but also, like I said, that bigger picture. And here are some of the observances that she had.
All right, socialists, pardon me, democratic socialists, sounds better when you say it that way. They're having a moment, no question. They are having a moment right now. Is that moment about to run out? We're going to get to that question here in just a minute. We've got Stacey Matthews. You would know her better. A sister told you from acertainredstate.com with us right now. I want to get to that in just a moment here regarding this DSA Frontrunners Revisionist Act falls apart story here in just a minute, Stacey. But let me start. You got Rand Paul grilling Anthony Fauci at the moment here. Your recent article, The Fauci Diaries and the Power of Sunlight. This is some of the more damning evidence, not even just about decisions that were made, but about the mindset, this sort of pseudo, I am a godlike mindset that Anthony Fauci basically grew into and basically absorbed while he was at the pinnacle of his power. And some would argue that at one point he may have been one of the most powerful policymakers and he wasn't elected to anything. And you had states and local governments just waiting for him and, Department of Health and all these other things to tell us how to live and how to not live. And a lot of this came from Anthony Fauci. So let's start there. Fauci Diaries and the Power of Sunlight. What do we know about those diaries and why is the sunlight so important?
Well, I think, we would all agree that it was always obvious that Fauci was an egomaniac who enjoyed the adulation he got from the media and the Democrat Party, much in the same way Andrew Cuomo did when he was governor. There was literally nothing either one of them could have done wrong in the eyes of their hero worshipers. But I think what the diaries have done is they've shown an even brighter light on what this type of hero worship and mindless idolization can do to a powerful person when it's left unchecked. For Fauci, it made him feel invincible. And in his view, probably it seemingly proved that he was right, quote unquote, about everything. And the bonus for Fauci was that the corporate media was eating everything he said right out of his hand, like we saw with Jake Tapper, and some of the others, and some of those emails. And I think honestly what the hearings are going to do, even if, at the end of the day, we don't see indictments, prosecutions, whatever, I think what we're going to see play out today, Mike, is that with Fauci, obviously, his reputation is the most important thing to him, and any chinks that can put in it are probably the biggest punishment, his reputation and his ego. When you can put a chink in that armor, that's probably one of the best punishments you can get for him, and that's what's probably going to play out today with Rand Paul in the hearings.
Stacey, let's talk about the media handling of this just for a minute. Obviously, that's something that we cover a lot at Red State, and you cover in particular. Not only did we have media falling all over themselves to worship at the feet of St. Fauci, but with Joe Biden, there was a little distance after he left office, and suddenly people like Jake Tapper and other, high-profile media figures were sort of going, well, yeah, we kind of know. They were kind of backtracking. They were kind of revising their approach to things. Do you think we're going to see any revisionist history from the media, the mainstream media, with regard to Anthony Fauci, or are they just going to dig in or just ignore it altogether?
I think it's going to be, they're either going to dig in or they're going to ignore it. I mean, so far, we've had, 2 days of revelations about the emails that have come out. I think they came out, Monday? And you've seen scant to no coverage from the press. And this was the same press who tripped all over themselves to cover Fauci and cover for Fauci during his time, when he was working with Trump through COVID the first year, and then the 2 years he was with Joe Biden. So I think you're going to see a mixture from the media. It's either going to be digging in or there's going to be ignoring, and there's not going to be any apologetics, going with this, because at the end of the day, the media are still going to think what they think about Fauci. This is not a thing like where it was with Joe Biden, where, Biden had an obvious health issue that was hindering his ability to fully function as the president of the United States. This is a little different. This was Fauci's ego that kind of ruled the day, and the media fed into that ego, and they were part of the problem. They helped drive the narratives that drove policy making and decision making about health for the first 3 years of COVID. And, this makes them look just as bad as it makes Fauci look. So they're going to be in defensive mode. They're going to be either ignoring it or, like I said, they're going to dig in and say, we were just reporting, what we knew, which we all know is a hot load.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Stacey, why does this matter? I mean, why does it matter that Rand Paul or other Republicans, or I would love to see a Democrat or two jump in there, but I'm not going to hold out my hope. Why does it matter that his narrative get exposed and sliced to pieces? Why does that matter other than vengeance and to take out his ego? Is there a bigger purpose?
I think there is a bigger purpose, Mike, and you talked about it. I was listening to you guys before I came on. I think it's important to learn for the future so we don't make these mistakes in the future, that we never, again, as you said, we never just take, at someone's word, that I'm the person you need to listen to on this. I'm the expert. That's one of the most damaging things that the COVID pandemic did to America is it crushed the ability to be able to put a reasonable amount of trust into what our government officials were saying. That you always want to view what the government says with skepticism and questions, but you need to have a reasonable amount of trust when something like this happens, and it just destroyed the ability to do that. And I think, exposing Fauci as the egomaniac as he was, is going to help us. There's many things, many lessons that need to be learned from what happened during COVID. But probably one of the biggest is that you don't put your trust into one single person, entity, organization, group. You have to pull in all viewpoints and listen and hope that they make the right call. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is about learning lessons. It's not just about revenge. It's about accountability and learning lessons. So, and God forbid, if we have a future pandemic, we won't make the same mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and it's speaking of taking in all different viewpoints, obviously the DSA is having its day in the sun. And we may not be paying super close attention to the Wisconsin gubernatorial race here in Missouri or there in North Carolina where you are. But there is some interesting developments in that race that kind of surround, who is and who isn't part of the DSA and what they really stand for. Tell us a little bit what's going on with that one.
Well, the Wisconsin gubernatorial race has gotten very interesting in the last few weeks. And the thing that's interesting to us that are outside of Wisconsin is that it's just a microcosm of the battle that's going on within the Democrat Party over, who is going to run it in the future. Is it going to be the establishment, or is the DSA wing of the party going to take over? And in Wisconsin, you have multiple candidates, and the leading candidates were their lieutenant governor, who is the establishment pick, and Francesca Hong, who is a state representative, who is backed by the local DSA chapters. And Sarah Rodriguez, who was the lieutenant governor, she ended up dropping out in the last couple of weeks due to a campaign finance scandal, finance reporting disaster where donations were overcounted, making it look like she had more money than she had. And it was such a disaster for her that she ended up dropping out. She didn't want to be a distraction in the race. But Francesca Hong, who's the DSA-backed candidate, has basically been leading this entire race. And now she's got momentum going into the primary next month. And the Democrat establishment brought in a gentleman named David Crowley, who was a Milwaukee County executive. And he had dropped out like a week before Rodriguez dropped out and endorsed her. So now he's back in the game because the establishment are terrified that Hong is going to win the gubernatorial nomination and then lose in the general election to Tom Tiffany, who is a congressman. He's the presumptive GOP nominee that's backed by Trump. So it's kind of been interesting, the way that things have played out there. And again, it provides kind of a window into into the battle we're seeing between the establishment and the DSA. And, ultimately, like a state like Wisconsin isn't like New York, where, a DSA candidate statewide would have a better chance of winning. Wisconsin is, kind of middle of the road. It's purple. It's, as, some of our readers and our writers would say, it's purplish. There's not a guarantee that if Hong were to win the nomination, she would go on to win the governor's race. But yeah, it's been kind of interesting to see. It's just been, the last 3 weeks have been very chaotic in that race, and it is something we need to pay attention to and see ultimately what happens if she wins the nomination, and what happens if does she go all the way, or do the Wisconsin voters kind of see the light of day and say, nope, you're not going any further.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the drama is interesting, but it's what's the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the country, especially the Rust Belt, the upper Midwest that Wisconsin is near. I wouldn't call Wisconsin Rust Belt, but they're close enough to it geographically. All right, that article is DSA Frontrunners Revisionist Act Falls Apart After Wisconsin Governor GOP Candidate Drops the Receipts. Redstate.com. And, of course, you can also see Sister Tolja's article, The Fauci Diaries and the Power of Sunlight, all of it at redstate.com. Stacey, as always, great chatting with you. Thanks so much.
All right, 314-912-1019. We are going to have some clips of that, and I want to know what you think, especially of those of you who maybe don't normally get involved in the conversation. But if you're among the Democrats or those on the left, I really want to hear from you as well. Josh Hawley was particularly in rare form. I've got a lot of disagreements with Senator Hawley, but as Susie calls it, it was good Josh on Wednesday because he was taking no prisoners when it comes to Anthony Fauci and his misdeeds and his just absolute viciousness and corruption. And so throughout the morning, we will be giving you a chance to weigh in on that right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Number one for live and local conservative talk.
I just would like to get your comments on that.
I'm so glad that you're on the radio, and I want to thank you for that.
I'll tell you why.
101.9 and 94.1.
I love these people.
St. Louis is number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Can you believe politicians nearly doubled state spending since 2019? Yeah, that's twice the rate of inflation.
What do we get for all that extra spending? Nothing.
Yeah, and get this, over 200 loopholes are buried in our tax code, written by lobbyists for wealthy corporations.
Our tax code is rigged against us.
We get taxed on our paycheck, our home, everything we buy.
I guess somebody's got to pay for all that spending.
That's why we need Amendment 5. It puts politicians on a leash.
Forces them to cut taxes and control spending, whether they like it or not.
Amendment 5 closes the loopholes, eliminates income taxes, cuts property taxes, and gives $3,000 a year to average working families.
We decide, not the politicians.
Amendment 5 is the biggest tax cut in Missouri history.
I'm voting yes on Amendment 5. Paid for by Missouri Promise PAC, Mark Ellinger, Treasurer.
The Herzog Tomorrow Foundation provides private school tuition scholarships through Missouri's new Most Scholars program to cover the cost of accessible, high-quality schooling.
Hi, this is Myella Esser with the Herzog Tomorrow Foundation. Our private school tuition scholarships wouldn't be possible without the support of generous Missouri taxpayers. If you're a Missouri taxpayer interested in redirecting your tax dollars and sending them to Missouri students in need of a better education, please contact me at herzogmostscholars.org.
Better education for students creates a better tomorrow for all. Learn how you can help provide a better education for Missouri students at herzogmostscholars.org. That's herzogmostscholars.org. Also, sign up for The Lion, an initiative of the Herzog Foundation that carries articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture. herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com.
Bengal's restaurant offers an inviting atmosphere, neighborly service, and a vibrant happy hour scene, all in the heart of Warson Woods. From their kitchen to your plates, beloved comfort favorites like chicken parmesan and lasagna to steakhouse-style classics. Slide up to the vintage bar or hit the patio for happy hour specials every Tuesday through Friday. Bengal's Restaurant and Bar, 10017 Manchester Road. Check out the menu and reserve a table online at bengalsrestaurant.com.
Hi, I'm Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe with an important message from Missouri 811. Every day, underground utilities like gas, power, water, sewer, and fiber internet keep Missouri running. These vital services are the backbone of our communities, but digging without contacting Missouri 811 can put them and you at risk. It's fast, it's free, and it's the law. Contact Missouri 811 before you dig.
Call 811 every dig, every time.
It's the law. This ad is brought to you by Missouri 811.
Gee, you wonder what we're going to talk about today, Susie?
I have no idea.
I'm telling you. Oh, my goodness. All right. Here's the thing is that we knew that the Fauci hearings were going to be intense. We knew that. We knew there was going to be, because there's honestly, this is one of those times where what was happening by our senators, in this case, truly is talking about the raw nerves that so many of us still feel from what occurred years ago.
Yeah.
Was there some virtue signaling? Well, by definition, I'm sure there was. Yeah, you could call it
congressional hearing. That's
congressional hearing. Of course, it's going to happen. And we know that a lot of these are just about getting the sound clips and the video clips for your social media for your upcoming campaign. And we kind of knew, especially once we figured out that the Fifth Amendment was going to be the underlying theme for Anthony Fauci.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: is that when I'm watching this, and I'm sitting in our boss's office, I was in Jeff's office watching some of this, right when Bernie Moreno dropped some.
Wow, yeah, he did not hold back.
He did not hold back. And what's really funny is that the chairman of the FCC gave us permission to play that in full. I'm going to play it bleeped. I'm not going to do it, but actually went on social media and said, sure, because there was another radio personality, actually somebody in town, who tweeted at him and saying, I want to be able to play that in full. And he retweeted and said, I got no issue with that.
What?
Yeah, it happened.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I did not see that.
Now, just in case the boss is listening, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play the full clip, just bleep.
With the bleeps.
Right. So, but it still gets the point across on this. So here's the thing, though, is that it's not over.
No.
Because now you've got Republicans saying, okay, we're going to have contempt hearings and a contempt vote. And I don't know I'm not sure how a Republican in particular is going to try to get away with not voting to hold Anthony Fauci in contempt. That's just the politics of it, much less the substance of it.
Well, I suspect his name is probably going to be like Tom Tillis or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that they would? I mean, just the substance means I think Fauci does deserve it.
Yeah.
But here's one of the things is, a lot of people are arguing, well, pleading the Fifth Amendment, that's his constitutional right. Isn't that a complete trump card, wild card? It means nothing can touch him, right?
No.
Okay, what's it mean?
No, I know. There's a lot of, oh my gosh, we don't have the time to get into.
Not
There's
yet,
lots of,
but we will through the morning.
There's lots of intricacies involved there. Yes, it is a right that you have to exercise, but you absolutely, there are parameters. There are reasons that you can't invoke it, or reasons that you may have waived it. There are lots of. I don't want to get too messy with it.
News Nation was interviewing Senator Rand Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Katie Pavlich was interviewing Senator Rand Paul after the hearings.
Mm-hmm.
Here is part of what he had to say about basically that and about Fauci's lies.
So Dr. Fauci, of course, was fine with lots of people being obsessed with him. But during his opening statement, he accused you of having an unhinged obsession with him. What is your response to that? And do you think he'll ever apologize for anything that he did during his handling of the pandemic?
I think my concern is justifiable. 1 million Americans died, 15 million died worldwide. And I'm not alone in believing this came from the lab. The CIA now believes that. The FBI believes that. The Department of Energy believes that. I would say a sizable percentage of scientists, particularly scientists in this arena, believe that. even the scientists who were his yes men, the ones who were saying, oh, it came from nature, in their private emails to this day are still saying, well, gosh, I think it might have been manipulated. I hate that we said it could not have been manipulated. It looks like maybe it was. Anthony Fauci was saying the opposite. That's the big problem he has for credibility and for history is he said so many things privately, and then he said the opposite publicly. Not just on this, on masks. Privately, he said masks don't work. In public, he wore 3 masks. Privately, he would acknowledge natural immunity. In public, he was saying, oh, we just don't know. We don't know. So there's a lot of public and private disparity. And I think that's really what's caught him up. And I think people don't like that hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's all about the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
You know, and now that we have Fauci's own private words, you know, and so if they're looking at them, we've just got a minute or so left here. So we'll follow up on this throughout the morning. And that's what I'm at, 314-912-1019. You can send us notes on social media. Obviously, you can, you know, whatever means works best for you. But I want to know what you think and what you feel. I'll let you know what I think. Susie's going to let you know what she thinks. But when it comes to the contempt of it, what is it? I guess the Cliff's Notes. What could they target on the contempt of Congress part?
Basically, it's obstruction. He's refusing to answer questions that he was subpoenaed to answer and that he was obligated to answer, and he can't hide behind the Fifth Amendment if certain things are in play.
Yeah, and that's what we'll dig into just a little bit because, like you said, we'd be doing a disservice if we tried to do it all in 30 seconds.
Oh my gosh, no. And I mean, it's not even something that I can just like rattle off. Like I have to like walk through it and talk through it to make it make sense.
Yeah, and just watching it was fascinating. And then, you know, I do have one of the parts of Josh Hawley going off, and it's what we referred to as good Josh Hawley.
Good Josh.
There's not always a good Josh Hawley. I think he gets a lot of stuff wrong.
He's pretty strong in most hearings, but this was him in his element.
The things that he's right about, he's really, really right about. And his going off on Fauci regarding his, frankly, corruption. You got rich. And then, of course, when he was toying with him, what color's your tie? On the advice of counsel, Fifth Amendment. What color's the rug right in front of you? On the advice of, I mean, and that was just a humiliation tactic, but it was showing how absurd Fauci's take on all this was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. The whole thing was quite the spectacle.
Right, it really was. Okay, so we're going to get started with that here in just a little bit. Also, property tax relief. It looks like a big part of the debate in St. Charles County is actually happening before the election. I'll explain what that's all about still ahead. By the way, say hi to Ashlyn, everybody who's in for Jerome today.
When Donald Trump needs conservative votes to help pass his agenda for Missouri, Representative Trisha Burns never answers the call. Trisha Burns has missed 370 votes. Burns is bucking President Trump's priorities. Burns did not vote to stop DEI initiatives, prevent China from owning Missouri land, defund Planned Parenthood, and Burns did not vote to ban boys from girls' sports. Trisha Burns not showing up for Missouri and President Trump. Instead, Trisha Burns spends her time pulling pranks on the suicide prevention hotline. Yes, you heard that right. Trisha Burns lied to the police and staged a fake suicide emergency. She sent a series of messages to the hotline and said she, quote, had a gun to her head, end quote. When she got caught, she said there'd be no consequences because she's a politician. By August 4th, vote to show Trisha Burns that there are consequences to being bad at your job.
Let's Go Brandon PAC paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Chris Voss, Treasurer.
Dude, this house is perfect. Crumbs everywhere, sticky counters. I've already texted the colonies.
Sweet. I'll bring my 500 cousins. This'll be the biggest ant rager of the summer.
Let's party! Wait, oh, what's that sound? Oh, no, it's those trucks with the green wheels. Party's over, man. Party's over.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. We'd love to help you out. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 636-486-7888.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Summer is here at Daniel's Farm and Greenhouses on Juggerman in St. Peters. Discover our breathtaking 55,000 square feet of greenhouses featuring 8,000 hanging baskets, hundreds of perennials, and 100,000 pots of colorful annuals. From vegetable plants to premium grass seed, mulch to herbs, our knowledgeable staff is ready to answer all your questions. Start spring off right with pansies, potted tulips, and everything your garden craves. Daniel's Farm and Greenhouses. Visit us today on Juggerman or online at danielsfarmandgreenhouses.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The U.S. retaliates for Iran's targeting of American troops in Jordan earlier this week. U.S. Central Command says a number of Iranian military-related targets were struck overnight. Inflation fears and the Iran war sending oil prices higher while stocks tumble. The Dow fell more than 1,100 points yesterday. The blue chip index suffering its biggest loss in over a year. The Federal Reserve voting to hold the line on interest rates. Russia has unleashed a devastating overnight attack on Ukraine.
The onslaught of ballistic missiles and drones has been going on for hours. Explosions were first reported in Kyiv shortly before midnight local time. Several fires broke out and the authorities have been urging people to remain in shelters. As the night has gone on, waves of cruise missiles and drones have been reported heading for targets across the country. First to the central cities of Dnipro and Kryvyi Rih, but soon as far west as Lviv, where 2 apartment buildings have been damaged.
The BBC's Ali McConnell. There will be no Senate committee vote today on Attorney General nominee Todd Blanche. Votemen cast 2 Republicans, John Cornyn and Tom Tillich, threatening no votes. He delivered a lengthy statement, but then refused to answer any questions. Dr. Anthony Fauci appearing before a Senate panel investigating the origins of COVID-19. Fauci repeatedly took the fifth. Senator Rand Paul says Fauci owes Americans an apology for his handling of the pandemic.
Instead of an apology, you have for years avoided responsibility.
And Paul raises the possibility of Fauci being held in contempt of Congress. Progress in the battle against raging wildfires in southwest France. 84,000 of the evacuees now being allowed to return to their homes. Watching Wall Street this morning, the Dow futures 154 points higher. NASDAQ futures up 298. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Veterans and active duty service members, when your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
So Karen and Michael Collins were in their 20s. They were newly married, and Michael found out he had cancer, stage 4. They're members of MediShare, and MediShare came through for them, not just financially.
But they called and they said, hey, we know you're going through treatment. We just wanted to call and pray for you. And it rocked my world.
MediShare was a blessing to us because they just made it so easy.
Call now. You'll see why so many Christians have made the switch to MediShare. Here's the number, 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch with your first alert forecast. We have issued a first alert weather day as we look off into Friday, but today, Thursday, we're going to be tracking temperatures towards the mid to upper 80s, mostly sunny skies, still low humidity. Into Friday, we have that first alert weather day as we're going to be looking at the potential for a few strong to severe storms possible from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Strong winds and a lesser potential to see an isolated tornado or two are going to be possible. Temperatures back towards the lower 80s. Showers and storms will push out into Saturday, highs towards the upper 70s. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Business owners, download your free playbook for financial clarity at SerenityWealthBiz.com. That's SerenityWealthBiz.com.
Republican Chris Sander is the true fiscal conservative running for state representative. Chris Sander says it's time to stop Travis Wilson giving away hundreds of millions of dollars in state tax credits to special interests. Billions of tax dollars given away to private developers of empty office buildings in St. Louis and sports stadiums in Kansas City. Chris Sander will work to bring our tax dollars home to St. Charles. We need a representative in our corner, not another lobbyist for St. Louis or Kansas City. Please vote for Chris Sander, Republican for state representative, the true fiscal conservative.
Paid for by Sander for Missouri. Patricia Van Dyne, Treasurer.
Craving hot chicken so good it ruins all other hot chicken? Welcome to Slaps Hot Chicken. Juicy, bold, always done right. From no heat all the way up to the Reaper. Try our famous loaded fries, loaded mac and cheese, and the only loaded fried ravioli you can get. Grab a crispy slider, sink your teeth into our jumbo tenders, or treat yourself to our mouth-watering chicken and waffles. Slaps Hot Chicken, 5950 Highway 94 in Weldon Spring. You've got to come in and try it for yourself.
In Missouri, your home works hard to keep up with the weather. Johnson Heating and Cooling works harder. We're a local family-owned company specializing in residential heating and cooling, service, repair, replacement, maintenance, even new construction. Our NATE certified technicians and trained comfort specialists keep families comfortable across Wentzville, O'Fallon, St. Charles, and beyond. Call 636-332-4141 or johnson-heatingandcooling.com.
When decisions matter most, experience isn't optional. As a former SWAT commander, Tim Whitney has led Under Pressure. Today, as Undersheriff and Chief Financial Officer, he helps lead hundreds of employees, manages one of the county's largest budgets, and protects taxpayers with conservative accountability.
I'm Tim Whitney, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. Together we can support responsible growth, strengthen public safety, protect taxpayers, and preserve the character that makes Jefferson County home.
Paid for by friends of Tim Whitney. Heather Missy, Treasurer.
On the next
Larry Connors USA.
The story behind the story. This date in 1993, the Monarch levee broke, flooding Chesterfield Valley.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
You know, in a lot of cases, we were just talking about this a second ago, Susie. Congressional hearings, they're sometimes just about getting clips for, your campaign social media. It's just nothing but gotcha questions.
Yep.
There was a lot of that yesterday. Don't get me wrong. I want to be objective and honest about this here. But I got to tell you, for once, I think that there was substance, and several of the lawmakers, sometimes for once, reflecting on the anger that so many of us feel still.
Yeah.
Over what happened.
I got to tell you that I'm not somebody that lives in anger. I've, like many people, I've moved on in a lot of ways, but all this discussion in the past few days has relit that for me and reminded me of just how much anger and frustration I feel when I think about when it was done.
A couple things on that, because I feel the same way. And by the way, 314-912-1019, or, send us your notes on that. Every once in a while, I'll get one of those on the Facebook Reels or some video on X or whatever that says, don't ever forget what they did to us. And they go back and show the most extreme things that we were subjecting ourselves and our children to. The band class in the high school where everybody was in one of those big plastic tents.
Yeah.
People wearing masks at restaurant, pulling their mask down to take a bite and put it back up. People being, hauled in by law enforcement on the beach. In just a minute, we'll talk about Bernie Moreno, senator from Ohio, referencing a mom who was arrested for not wearing a mask, sitting by herself outside at a football game. And we look back, and at the time we were told to be so scared that we were wiping down our grocery bags. Sam Page and Mike Parson and J.B. Pritzker were issuing stay-at-home orders, and we were foolish enough, many people were foolish enough, to actually obey them.
Most people were, and we all did. And I got to say this. Early on, I can't fault people for trying to comply, and I mean, we were all trying to do what we could to help keep this thing from getting out of hand.
Yeah.
And it was a new experience. So I don't fault people for being unsure and looking to the authorities and following along to a point.
Now we know the authorities didn't know what they were talking about, or they were outright lying, and that it became about control. And
very quickly.
It very quickly became about, well, maybe we're not right, but we can't let the people think they can defy us.
Right.
That's where this went. And where did that come from? It came from Doctors Birx, Collins, Fauci, with Fauci being the lead guy, even though he
was kind of like the face of the whole, the authority, the expertise.
Right. So here's part of those hearings that happened yesterday. This is Senator Bernie Moreno he just told that story about the mom at the football game who was sitting alone outside without a mask on. And here's part of where that went.
was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the f*** do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace. So let me ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Okay, that is beyond soundbite collection. That meant something.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, you know, he needs to be in jail. He'll never be in jail. I mean, I understand that. I think the likelihood of him actually seeing me inside of a jail cell is very slim, very slim. Now, he may have put himself in the thick of it with the contempt situation, but be that as it may, I don't think that's likely. Yep. As I said yesterday, he will meet his justice, and it may be not in this plane, but in a different one. Right. But his glorious 50-year career is in the toilet. I mean, there are people who will always hold him up as St. Fauci and will always, sing his praises. Good for them, whatever.
That tells you something about that person, though.
I mean, anybody...
I honestly, it tells you something about their character.
It does. It does. Anybody who's able to look at this objectively knows this guy was, I mean... He deserves the scorn and the dressing down that he got yesterday.
And it's not even just about he made stuff up. And Francis Collins admitted out loud, we were just making stuff up.
Yeah, the 6 feet rule.
He goes, it just came out of thin air. He goes, we were just he's admitted that. So it wasn't even just about the non-scientific, non-medical controls and demands and trying to crush people who pushed back and went, no, hold on. There was more to that. Here's Josh Hawley going after Anthony Fauci.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich, didn't you? You got rich. While people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich, and not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
This isn't just about masks.
No.
This isn't even just about vaccine mandates. It's about that corruption. And while the rest of us were trying to be controlled, that's what this is about, because we now have the receipts because his private writings, although they were on government stuff, so they're not really private.
Right.
We have the receipts, and we know that. Is that where the contempt could be? Because he's pardoned for all of that stuff. That's why he's
No, that's not it. And again, we can. I don't know when we'll have a chance.
We'll
to
have more
delve
time.
into
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah. We'll come back to this.
The contempt of Congress thing is a separate aspect. The contempt of the Americans towards him, yes, no, absolutely. But in terms of actual criminal charges for contempt of Congress, no, that doesn't stem from that.
No.
It stems from procedurally what was done yesterday and whether it was appropriate or inappropriate to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Plenty of time to weigh in on this. We got a lot of ground to cover. Yeah, PMS on Rumble. Holly really made Fauci look bad. I would argue that Holly was pointing out that Fauci made Fauci look bad.
Yeah, he's shown the light on how bad Fauci looks.
Yeah, without with no question. Yeah, on that. So yeah, send in your comments. We'll be looking through all of those, but we got a lot of ground to still cover today.
Okay, well, we'll stay on top of the debate over Anthony Fauci throughout the morning. Keep your thoughts on him and the hearings coming. And at 6:20, find out who's getting some of their property taxes eliminated this coming year.
Yeah.
Life's legal challenges deserve experienced representation. For over 15 years, Cole Combs, attorney at law, has been serving St. Charles and surrounding counties with comprehensive legal expertise. From tax preparation and estate planning to family law and criminal defense, Cole delivers personalized solutions for your unique situation. You have traffic tickets, need a business formation, real estate matters, one call will handle it all. Cole O. Combs, attorney at law. Call 636-949-0010, extension 3 today, or visit colecombs-law.com.
Tuesday night.
Missouri decides 2026.
All the results and reactions from the Missouri State Primary.
You have to get out and vote.
From the voices you know and trust in St. Louis for election night coverage.
Amendment 4.
Amendment 5. County executives.
Coverage begins Tuesday night at 7 on St. Louis's conservative voice.
Right here.
News Talk STL. Brought to you by Fast Signs in Bridgeton, 21 Recycling in House Springs, Gemini Wealth Group, and Freddy's Market.
Hey folks, Chris Cooper here, your financial friend with Serenity Wealth Management. You know, Tuesday, the 4th of August, we got to go to the ballots. We got to go and vote. We got to make sure we show up for the Show Me State because there's some big amendments on the move. Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Tune in, a couple of buddies, having some beers, talking about key amendments that do affect your financial future. Serenity Wealth Now social media outlets, or of course right here on News Talk STL. Sunday morning, 9 a.m. We will see you there.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
Travis Wilson here, State Representative from District 106 in St. Charles, Missouri's first state capital. I wanted to remind everyone that we have a crucial primary election coming up on Tuesday, August 4th. No excuse, in-person voting has already begun, and I'd appreciate your vote to continue my service for the great people of St. Charles. For more information on early voting or to learn more about me and the important issues facing Missouri, visit me on Facebook at Wilson for St. Charles. Thank you, and may God continue to bless the state of Missouri.
Paid for by Wilson for St. Charles. Merle Schneider, Treasurer.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
All right, you know that property tax debate in St. Charles County?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big deal. Did the county government just beat the candidates to the punch on the issue, though? That may have happened. Okay, so I'm going to get to that in just a minute here. It is 6:18. We've got Susie and we've got Ashlyn in for Jerome today. Jerome's taking a couple days off. I mean, he's supposed to be, but he's actually lurking in the corner over there before he heads off to the Lake of the Ozarks. But getting Ashlyn up and running here, so Ashlyn's in for today and tomorrow on that. Okay, so before we get to that, looks like Scott has some thoughts on the whole Fauci thing, which I'm going to argue, listen, this is bigger than Anthony Fauci. I'm going to caution everybody, don't direct everything at Anthony Fauci. He's the gateway to the bigger picture of the authoritarianism and the tyranny that we had. And he was a big part of leading all of that and causing a lot of that. But Fauci isn't the entire story, but he's a big part of it. Scott, what do you think? You're on the air.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, correct. He's not, but he's the head of the snake at this point, and so that's what needs to be dealt with. I'm surprised, one, in the intervening 6 years that some Sopranos-type justice has not been meted out against him by a civilian. Secondly, I didn't know you could use the Fifth Amendment as both a sword and a shield. By allowing him to go out and make the statements, and then he sits back and says, well, in advice of counsel, I can't say anything. Additionally, since they were going there, they should have posed absolutely disgusting questions to him, asking him is it true, or are there rumors that you molested your daughters? All this kind of stuff, just so it's in that record and just so he has to live with that for the rest of his pathetic days.
Scott, appreciate you being on the program. I'm not advocating for the Sopranos type justice. I get what you're saying, but
I'm surprised someone hasn't done it. That's my point.
Hey, Scott, thanks for being on the show. All right. I think it was interesting the way he framed that, using the Fifth Amendment as both the sword and the shield. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, and
I
completely understand why he's asking that. And again, that's getting into the legalities of it. And it may be why he may be in trouble, because he did make an opening statement of sorts and like kind of a prefatory comment before invoking it. And there could even be an argument that in doing that, he opened the door up.
Yeah. And so the contempt hearings are likely to happen next week.
Yeah, that's
if not the week after, but probably next week.
Well, it depends, because the Senate was going to be going on recess.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know yet. I think they're going to happen next week, because I think the recess was supposed to be the following week. But obviously there's a lot in play there.
Yeah, because there's I suspect a lot of work to put that together. Keep your thoughts on this. Agree or disagree with this. Keep your thoughts and comments coming on this and how this all made you feel. Because I think for a lot of people, I think it brought back up.
Oh, definitely.
What we went through, and we're like, that's the guy who had so much to do it. And then, of course, Francis Collins, who later admitted we were full of crap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's video of it. He's like, we made it up.
Yeah.
Deborah Birx, she's another part of this.
Right. And this isn't even getting into like how this all happened to begin with.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different can of
Exactly.
worms.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be over this all morning long, but we do have other news that's going on. Okay, St. Charles County, the property tax thing.
Yeah.
This has been a massive, and obviously driven by Bill Eigels, put the property tax thing front and center. And interesting is this week, the St. Charles County Council voted to zero out their part of the property tax bills for this coming year.
How does that work?
Because they said, well, we had stronger than anticipated sales tax revenue. Therefore, we can put zero on the county's part. Now, that doesn't change anything for the school district or the library district or the fire ambulance district or any other thing that you've got in your area. You're still going to get a property tax bill on that's going to reflect all of that. But for the actual county government, which isn't, it's going to be a few bucks for everybody, but you're actually going to see a zero on there for this coming property tax bill.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not what Bill Eigel has essentially been saying he's proposing to do?
Yes.
Is this a move to steal his thunder before the election?
I will leave that up to voters, but I think it's interesting that that you've got the argument that we can't do that. Now, I think Bill was also arguing that you could zero out all of the other ones,
right?
Which I don't think you can.
Right.
But this process that they just enacted is what the debate's been about. And it was a unanimous vote.
And why did it happen the week before the election?
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have questions.
Yeah.
If you could do this now, why couldn't you do it before?
Right.
Why was it just right now? And why is it right on that one issue?
Yeah.
I have questions.
Yeah. So when you get your property tax bill, being a St. Charlesian.
I am. That means I'm going to be voting next Tuesday.
Yes.
In St. Charles.
So when you get that, as far as like when they list out where everything goes, as far as the property taxes, by St. Charles County government, or however they list that, it should have zeros.
Yeah, I don't even remember if they break. I guess they do.
They should. They're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things that you
In
look
St.
at it
Louis
when you
County, they break them out.
You look at it when you get it, and then you pay it, and you try and forget about it.
Most people just look at the bill number, groan and cuss, and then do the payment. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll have to look at it anyway because I've got to get my tags renewed. But
yeah,
I will take a closer look at that. But I'm very intrigued by that, and I will tell you right now, I'm very skeptical of the timing.
Right, and the good news is that there's a few dollars they're not going to be collecting. So basically, I think it was, I don't know, whatever tens of millions that they or 3.4 million, whatever it was, that they are not going to be collecting. Saying, well, we had growth, we had businesses come, we had new residents, and that generated more sales tax revenue than I guess what we we thought we were going to get. Therefore, this can offset that part of the property
Great,
taxes.
wonderful.
That's good.
I just question your timing.
Yeah. So does that take out part of the discussion over the campaign? Because obviously this has been Bill Eigel's thing. And at this point, does the debate go, it's already done, dude. You can't, but he's the one. I don't know that this would have happened had Bill not been driving this so much.
I don't think it really does. I mean, first of all, there's been early voting going on for a while. We're right up on the election, and I think there's a bigger part of this. There's a bigger picture,
right?
And we're talking about one isolated move that is for now,
right? For 1 year, this isn't permanent,
right?
Yeah.
I think there are deeper structural issues that have to be looked at, just regarding taxation overall. So I don't really know that it does, but I do feel like I'm sorry, I can't help it. I can't help but notice the timing of it, and that to me makes me very skeptical of the motive behind it and the timing.
Yeah. Also regarding property taxes, the 2025 special session in Missouri that did all the corporate welfare for the Royals and the Chiefs, part of that entire agreement was property tax limits around the state, but they only applied to some counties. Counties could opt in or opt out, and some counties were not included. Like, for instance, St. Louis County, because the local state lawmakers wanted no part of limiting property taxes, they don't qualify. But other counties around the area, including like St. Charles and some of the others, they are going to have limits on property taxes under that 2025 law. Well, there's been lawsuits from school districts and fire districts that are pointing out the state constitution doesn't allow laws to apply to Missourians unequally.
Yeah.
You can't say here's a law for this area and not for this area. And so a judge in Missouri now is weighing that lawsuit. And there was an update that's kind of popped around in the news. A ruling is expected next week. And in all likelihood, I wouldn't say, my guess is that entire property tax, that property tax provision is going to get struck down. And then it'll be appealed and it'll go to the state Supreme Court where I think they'll strike it down.
Yeah.
And we've even had some really conservative attorneys like Dave Rowland from the Freedom Center say, yeah, this is unconstitutional. It should be struck down. You know how much, Susie, how much I hate saying I think the public school districts are right about something, because they're almost never.
I can see it's paining him. It's paining him.
I almost never. I think the school districts or public school districts are wrong about basically everything. But on this one, constitutionally, I think they're right. Now they're doing it because they want more property tax revenue. They just want to keep taxing you more. The fire protection districts, they just want to be able to increase your property taxes. That's what this is all about. But the claim that they're making, I think, is true. Is that the part of this deal, and this is the deal that Rick Bratton worked out in 2025. It's what got him run out of the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah.
And so what happened is Rick Bratton worked out a deal to get some property tax relief in order to secure enough votes while they were giving the Chiefs and the Royals this corporate welfare package. And so the corporate welfare package part is not going to be affected by this judge's ruling. It's severable, so the Royals can still take their hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare, which is likely what they're going to do. There's a separate lawsuit over that. But this one right here, it looks like the whole thing could be shut down, and it would have been for naught. So the billionaires who own the Royals still get their corporate welfare as it stands, and any property tax relief is going to be null and void because it was done in a way that was outside the Missouri Constitution. So the Republicans just muffed this one like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they seriously Charlie Brown footballed it.
Yeah, maybe even worse than that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the lesson here is don't sell your soul. I mean, come on. Whether it's we all love our sports teams.
Yeah.
I get it. But if you do this, you're going to not only screw over your own career, but you're screwing over your fellow Missourians.
Right.
Stop it.
Yeah, and Rick's a pretty conservative guy. He swung and missed on this in a big way, and it's got some big consequences. He's running for Congress in the new gerrymandered 5th district, and he's in pretty good shape. And I think he'd be a pretty conservative member of Congress, but this was a debacle in 2025 in this rush to hand out corporate welfare, where what the state should have done is just tell because it turns out the fix was in on the Chiefs. They were never planning to stay in Missouri, as it turns out. We now know that. We have that confirmed because there were non-disclosure agreements that go back like 3 years with people in Kansas.
Right.
So we know the plan was in, and they were just using Missouri as leverage to get more corporate welfare from Kansas. And the Royals have wanted a downtown stadium forever. And so there was a rush to give them that when what they should have said is, hey, you want to go to Memphis? I-70's that way. Have at it. That should have been the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand the trick box they found themselves in. I
Yep.
understand the emotion there, but that was a bad decision.
Very much.
You know what's a good decision? Tuning into News Talk STL for our live election night coverage Tuesday night, August 4th, beginning at 7 p.m. Tony Colombo and the News Talk STL election team will be covering the Missouri election results as they come in, real-time coverage of the stories behind the results, and more importantly, what it means for you. Sponsored by our friends Freddie's Market, Gemini Wealth Group, Fast Signs of Bridgeton, and 21 Recycling in Imperial. Live and local election night coverage Tuesday night at 7 from your live and local station, News Talk STL.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch with your first alert forecast. We have issued a first alert weather day as we look off into Friday, but today, Thursday, we're going to be tracking temperatures towards the mid to upper 80s, mostly sunny skies, still low humidity. Into Friday, we have that first alert weather day as we're going to be looking at the potential for a few strong to severe storms possible from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Strong winds and a lesser potential to see an isolated tornado or two going to be possible. Temperatures back towards the lower 80s. Showers and storms will push out into Saturday, highs towards the upper 70s. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch.
I'm Bill Eigel. I'm a no on data centers. Last year, when a new hyperscale data center was up for a vote in St. Charles City, I'm the only candidate for county executive who stood with you in opposition. Meanwhile, Steve Ellman was writing op-eds in support of data centers. In fact, he spent $400,000 of your taxpayer money to identify 6 locations just for data centers in St. Charles County. I'm Bill Eigel, and if you don't want data centers in our county, then I'm asking for your vote on August 4th.
Paid for by Eigel from Missouri. Lisa Borchers, Treasurer.
When the storm hits and a tree comes down, you need someone you can trust right now. OLI Outdoor Services in Godfrey is on call 24/7 for emergency tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, and land clearing. Serving Illinois and Missouri with licensed, insured professionals and over 200 years of combined experience. Tree removal starting at just $2.99. Free estimates, plus financing. Visit OLIOutdoorServices.com or call 1-888-5-SIGN.
It's a brand new show on News Talk STL, JC's Sunday Showgram.
This week, I'll tell you the story of how my debut in St. Louis back in '84 almost ended after 2 months. They almost whacked me. Plus, this week in '69, Charlie Manson's pals wreaked havoc in Southern California. And we'll tell you how a St. Louis TV reporter busted the case wide open. All brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
Sunday morning, 7 to 9. Then podcast each Monday on NewsTalkSTL.com.
Bill, you're an old politician.
Yup, sure am.
So you know the old timers warned that someone trying to sell you a pig in a poke was a con man.
Well, sure.
Well, no offense, Tom, but your politician's Amendment 5 is a pig in a poke, allowing politicians to raise our taxes without a vote of the people, and the politician's Amendment 4 takes away our power to do anything about it. Well, let's look at what's really inside Ford 5.
Oh, don't do that.
5 hits hardest seniors and those struggling financially with new taxes on services like doctor visits, in-home care, and rent. Sales taxes could more than triple. For up to 80% of Missourians, it's a tax hike. And Amendment 4 ends majority rule, allowing a minority of the most liberal statewide voters in one district to effectively end our power to stop corruption and out-of-control spending and taxing.
Slick plan, huh?
No, Tom. 4 and 5 are schemes that hurt citizens and transfer our power and our money to politicians and lobbyists. That's why I'm voting no on the politicians' Amendments 4 and 5.
Paid for by Missourians for fair taxation.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Wherever I'm at, home, car, wherever.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Just the convenience on the phone.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
Love the new app.
And listen anytime.
Everywhere.
Anywhere.
All right, heads up. Those Fauci hearings turned out to be both a beatdown of the science I think feel like we should say trademark the science, but also hit some really raw nerves. So we're going to keep covering that and the fallout of that throughout the morning. Okay, because I got a few other things I want to work in, but I feel like what's that right balance? Because I'm not going too far from this. This turned out to be, I think, a bigger deal than what a lot of us thought. Because I think a lot of us went into this saying, okay, you're going to come in and you hate Fauci or you love Fauci, and it's just going to be a big circus. And there was a little bit of that, I think, for sure. But I think the way that some of the Republicans and one of the Democrats, Fetterman, I thought Fetterman was interesting. I was watching this in Jeff's office, our boss, and he was basically saying I was wrong.
Yeah.
He called on his compadres in the Democratic Party, as long as they're going to leave him in. I think they're going to throw him out at some point. But he goes, we should admit that we were wrong. And he was the only one that's doing that. The others wanted to turn this into an attack on, you guys won't let this go. Oh, by the way, Donald Trump,
Yeah.
The Donald Trump wasn't in the room with him, but,
He's always in the room with him.
Yeah, so we are not going to go too far from that. We're going to be back to that. All right, a lot of raw nerves here. Okay, so keep those comments coming. Obviously, a lot of coverage on redstate.com here on this, among many other things. This isn't everything that's happening in the world. So, Susie, when it comes to that, what should we be checking out today on redstate.com?
Well, let me tell you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is fine. Today on redstate.com, this is a big one. Rusty Weiss has this one up. It's called Truly Embarrassing. Sophie Cunningham rips Seattle Storm co-owner for berating teen girls. I don't know if you saw this, but this was like at a WNBA
Seattle
game.
Storm is a WNBA team,
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right.
And there were girls there that had on their XXXY t-shirts.
Oh,
which, of course, is standing for understanding that there is a biological reality to, sex.
Yeah.
And boys and men don't belong in girls and women's sports. That's what that means.
Which should not be controversial, but we know it is.
Well, okay. And so apparently the co-owner of the team was like berating them, and there were fans that were booing them and really going after them. And so Sophie Cunningham, in her very
pointed way,
is kind of going after them, and she's basically saying she wants to get in touch with the girls and kind of like, give them I don't know.
Just on a side note on that, and what's the title of that article?
Truly Embarrassing. Sophie Cunningham rips Seattle Storm co-owner for berating teen girls.
Hey, WNBA, this is one of the reasons, not just that people dislike you, but they don't even pay attention to know that you're there because of stuff like this. So the co-owner of a WNBA team, which I'd never heard of, and decides that this is why the WNBA is just irrelevant. Is because they're like, we're going to be the left-wing woke, because didn't the WNBA at one point say we're not going to merchandise that pointing silhouette? Because there are people like, put that on a T-shirt, and
make millions off of it.
Yeah, they could make, by WNBA standards, they could make dozens of dollars off this. And but they're like, no, because the left-wing players are angry. So that's disrespectful. She was pointing at a black woman, and that was really the argument. And so
pointing at a player who just made a dirty move.
Right.
Doesn't matter what color his skin is. Come on.
But that's what they're like, that was disrespectful. And so the WNBA thinks it's a bigger deal than it actually is. And things like what your team is writing about shows you just how clueless they actually are.
Yeah. Well, definitely check that article out. I want you to check out this one from Bob Hogue. America is toast if the radical left wins. That's a quote from Elon Musk, who's reportedly all in on GOP midterm efforts. He has thrown his sizable weight, if you will, his financial support, his obviously social media reach support behind the GOP, because he recognizes the dangers of allowing the Democrats to retain or regain control.
Yeah, and by the way, along these lines, Chuck Schumer was asked about the DSA, their chair saying we need to abolish the Senate, abolish the president, and all these super radical things. And here's what Chuck Schumer said when he was asked specifically to address the socialist demands of the party.
Democrats from one end of the spectrum to the other are going to be working to defeat Trump, to bring down costs, to go after his corruption, and to end the chaos.
So to Bob's point right there, they won't even address it.
No. Well, yeah, and Chuck's stuck because he can't, First of all, they're coming after him too. But yeah, it's ridiculous. I also want to point out this other article. This highlights, because people here in our listening audience might really find this interesting. Iowa and Missouri tell New York to keep its climate rules at home. This is from Ben Smith, and this is highlighting a lawsuit that was recently filed by our own Attorney General, Catherine Hanaway, along with several other state attorney generals, basically saying, hey, New York, you do you with your little greenhouse gas stuff and all that stuff, but you don't get to dictate what we do in our states.
Yeah, and a lot of people may say, well, how could they do that? They're in New York. How does their state law apply to us? So that's what Catherine's going after here, right?
Yeah. So what ends up happening is, and this there was a similar case out of California not too long ago that had to do with pork products and how they're handled. Basically, like the state is setting these standards that by definition are going to require other companies, entities from other states to abide by their regulations in order to sell their products there or, do business there. So that's forcing them to have to abide by New York's rules, even though the rest of the states may not agree with those rules.
Okay, let me, I'm trying to find a way to play devil's advocate on this because we see this in California as well because their environmental stuff is so strict that a lot of companies are going, well, we have to do it because there's so many people there. Is there an argument, is there a states' rights argument to be made that says, well, these companies have a choice to not sell there or to sell there?
There may be.
Yeah.
There may be. But there is also the point of, that there are certain ways that which states and the regulations are effectively basically trying to lord it over the rest of the states. And that this is the pushback
So
from
this could be an interstate commerce clause situation.
It definitely could be.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Wicker versus Filburn.
All right. So redstate.com is where you find all that.
Check those all out.
All right. I'm getting some updates. I'm watching from not just Secretary of State Denny Hoskin, locally here, Kurt Barr in St. Charles County, been really pretty good about updating on the early voting situation. Again, I'm not a fan of long-term early voting. I'm going to use it because it's there, but I'm not a huge fan of it. But here's the thing is that Kurt Barr in St. Charles County, I have not heard anything from St. Louis County yet, and I've not heard anything from like Jeffco or anything like that or Lincoln County. But he's been updating daily, pointing out that the early voting turnout has been much higher than in previous years, previous election cycles.
Interesting.
Denny Hoskins is saying statewide, that's the trend in Missouri as well, is far more people are using the early voting than have used it in previous election cycles. And Denny Hoskins is predicting statewide about a 32% voter turnout for the primary elections.
That's a pretty good turnout. I mean, well, no, it's not.
It's terrible, but it's better than normal. Yeah.
Relatively speaking, that's a pretty good turnout.
A political wonk would go, wow, that's really good. And everybody else is going, you mean 2/3 of voters aren't going to show up? Yes. Yeah. As opposed to 3/4 not showing up.
Exactly.
Only 2/3 are not going to show up.
I think one of the things that may be going on there is that people have now gotten used to the idea that early voting is not forbidden and that it's okay and it's actually more convenient. Sometimes it just is more convenient to your schedule. Maybe your Thursday is more convenient for voting than Tuesday is. Right. And so rather than limiting yourself to that one day and running the risk that it's going to be a lot more crowded that specific day.
There's a bad storm, whatever. Yeah.
You just go by there and go ahead and vote. And it isn't that complicated a process. So that doesn't surprise me. I think people maybe are just settling into and getting more used to that.
And I also think that with as intense as the statewide and some of the local issues and campaigns are, I think that's spurring things on. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Amendments 4 and the Amendments 5, those issues on both sides are driving more people to go, I am going to make sure I'm getting my vote in.
That's true. Yeah, definitely is. I also think there's one of those things like you were saying, you're not a fan of early voting. I'm not really.
Yeah.
But of the options, I'm much more a fan of like having a week or two of early voting and then having the complete cutoff day on election day instead of accepting ballots and mail-in and drop-offs and all that stuff for weeks and days and after that. So, if you have a hard stop, out, if you will.
In radio terms.
Yes. I'm more comfortable with at least a brief window of early voting.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. And like I said, I use it now that it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, that may make me hypocritical. I would rather do it on the election day. Now, I have used early voting for the other, like, for instance, back in 2008, I was working on one of the presidential campaigns, and I had to be in Georgia for election night.
Yeah.
So I had to fly out like the night before. So I went and said, I'm going to be gone for work. That was before the no excuse voting. But now I'm going to run by St. Louis County and I'm going to cast my vote. I still got to show my ID. They're going to print my ballot for me. And I've got to do that. And it is convenient, easy. I just, 2 weeks out seems like a lot. And I think there's going to be some people to go, oh, I changed my mind on that.
Right.
But that's what you risk when you do that.
That's
the risk. What you risk.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want it to be a huge window. And there is the idea that the longer that window is or the wider it's open, the more chance for manipulation there could possibly be. But, yeah.
I think what you said is a perfect trade-off, though. Okay, you can have that, but there has to be that cutoff on election day.
Right.
And, of course, I don't think other than, like, military overseas, I don't think we should be accepting any mail-in ballots at all. I think Trump's right about that.
Yeah. So I once used the absentee system because I early voted once because I was an election judge, so I wasn't going to be able to vote on election day. And then I used absentee when I was going to be out of the state on the day of the election. And that was a mailed-in absentee ballot. But it was an absentee ballot.
Right.
So, like,
that's
a little different. So, I don't know. I think they could just kind of agree that election day ends on election day. We'd be in much better shape. You know, Mr. Science, Dr. Science, Mr. Whatever, goes under the microscope and refuses to talk. That's part of what we're talking about in the news dump at 6:50.
Back toward the center.
News, analysis, and opinion.
I've never called a talk show before, but this just irked me.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
At Body of Health, we're a small but mighty family operation with big ambitions for your health. I'm Helene Tobler, and I'm jazzed about how our MRI-grade body composition analyzer is putting personalized health and wellness on steroids. It helps me and Dr. Tobler, that's my husband, refine the advice we give to help you feel better and live longer. Body of Health, trusted, discerning, affordable healthcare the way it ought to be. Learn more at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
Hi, this is St. Louis County Councilman Mark Harder reminding you to check out my new show this weekend.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
That's me. Every Sunday evening at 5, we will explore with you behind-the-scenes stories and information that you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, we talk to decision makers and influencers that have impact on what's going on in St. Louis County and beyond.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
I'll talk to you Sunday night at 5, only on News Talk STL.
The Herzog Foundation is the vision of its founder, Stanley Herzog, and it exists to promote quality Christ-centered K-12 education nationwide.
Hi, this is Chris Stegall with the Herzog Foundation. We offer a wide variety of resources relevant to today's families, including a free online publication called The Lion. The lion is one of God's most majestic creatures, symbolizing strength and courage. Named for its attributes, the Lion publication carries articles covering a wide range of topics facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. The Lion can be found online at readlion.com. That's READ lion.com.
Sign up for The Lion at readlion.com and find dozens of must-read articles published every day. Visit readlion.com and subscribe for the weekly and daily digests so you never miss an article. Readlion.com. That's readlion.com.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. News Talk STL is celebrating our 5th birthday. And we're giving away a limited edition News Talk STL America 250 t-shirts. It's exclusive, it's collectible, and it could be yours. Just head to newstalkstl.com to register.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, News Talk.
Been listening since day one. Happy birthday to my talk station.
5 years, happy birthday.
News Talk STL.
News Talk STL. Happy birthday to us, and good luck to you.
Hi, it's Randy Tobler here. Pour a big cup of coffee and catch my show every Saturday morning from 6 to 9. Right now, it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning here on News Talk STL.
All right, the verbal beatdowns of Anthony Fauci, those were not the end of the saga. They were just the next step. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, property tax bill is going to look a little bit different in St. Charles County this time around. I'm going to give you the basic details here, and then I think maybe 720, because a lot of people had some thoughts on that. So I want to dig into that just a little bit more. But basic details coming your way here. Cardinals go into extra innings last night, and, well, I'll tell you what happened. It is 6:49 right now. Let's go ahead and do a news dump.
The Morning News Dump, brought to you by the Nutrition Stop.
successful dump.
Wake up, America.
It all worked out.
They get all the news.
The Morning News Dump.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
Okay, there was a whole lot of that happening in Washington, D.C.
111 times.
Yep. Former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, invoking the Fifth Amendment. He refused to answer questions how many times?
111.
111 times during Wednesday's Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee hearing, and that was focused on the origins of and the government response to the COVID-19 era.
Yeah.
And the virus there. All right, chairman of that committee is Rand Paul, announcing that the committee is going to seek to hold Fauci legally responsible for the way he invoked the Fifth Amendment.
Because you refused to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt.
Okay, so Fauci says he invoked the Fifth Amendment because he believed that Rand Paul was trying to get him to make statements that could be used against him. The chairman repeatedly calling for Fauci to be prosecuted over, well, the news copy says allegations that he lied to Congress. It's pretty obvious that he lied to Congress. And of course, Fauci denies that in public. What he wrote privately, not so much.
It's not supported by that.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to dig into this throughout the morning here as well, including 735. Michael Pack, who produced that documentary, The Lockdown Dissidents. You can see that at the Wall Street Journal's page. He's going to be back on saying, yeah, that documentary they produced, Fauci's writings show that we were right.
Yeah.
So 735, you do not want to miss that conversation. Panera is offering St. Louis employees some raises and up to $50,000 in relocation support if they'll make the move to the Boston area. So we got that follow-up to that story we talked about yesterday. So this follows the news that the company is moving its headquarters there. Employees who decline the offer are going to be offered a voluntary severance package. Hundreds of jobs are affected by the change. According to the reports I read on this, it looks like the raises they're offering the St. Louis employees could go up to about 10%. I think the cost of living is more than 10% higher in the Boston area than it is here in the St. Louis area. Up to $50,000 in relocation costs, which probably sounds about right when you're talking about a high-level executive sort of stuff that you're going to have to do. It turns out that the executives of Panera have been working out of Boston for a while.
Yeah.
They've been like pseudo headquartering there anyway. So this is really
making it official.
Yeah, this is the transition that's going to be the big deal for everybody else. FedEx is closing 2 metro area locations, affecting about 150 jobs. KMOV's Heather Sullivan has the details.
So here are the impacted locations. One in Earth City and another off South Henley Road at the Maplewood area. FedEx said the closures will be permanent. The company says the closures are due to reorganization. And here's a breakdown of the impact so far. The Earth City FedEx has 75 full-time employees. The Maplewood FedEx employs 68 full-time workers. The company says the employees will be given options such as transferring.
Okay, so there's a chance that most of those jobs may not necessarily be lost, and a lot of those will at least stay in the metro area.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go into more depth. Let's say about 720. Let's do this here. Property tax bills for St. Charles County residents could be a little smaller this coming year. Not a lot smaller, but a little smaller. Pointing to Strong's sales tax revenue, the county council voted to zero out its part of the property tax bill, at least for this coming year. Now, that is just a small part of the overall bill, as most property taxes are collected by school districts and fire and ambulance districts and things like that, library districts and other jurisdictions. But we'll get into some of the details as to what's happened, because what they voted on is basically the very thing that has been debated in the race for St. Charles County executive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is interesting and curious.
Yeah. So I'd say 720. Let's dive into that just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay. Part of the law that gave the Kansas City Royals hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare could be struck down. Not the corporate welfare part, the part that limited property tax increases in many parts of the state. Now, that law came from a 2025 special session, and it limits tax increases in many counties, but does not apply to others, including St. Louis County. A lawsuit from some public school districts and fire protection districts argues that it violates the state constitution's requirement that lawmakers not pass, and I'm quoting here, any local or special law, which has been understood for all these years to mean you can't pass a law that applies to one person or one area differently than it applies to others.
Yeah. I guess the exception to that would be like things that talk about charter cities versus.
Right.
Yeah. But there, as you pointed out, there may be a good legal argument here.
I have a feeling that this property tax limits and guardrails are going to be struck down for most of the state that actually this is applied by because of the debacle that was the rush to give the Royals hundreds of millions of dollars.
Bad.
It was a
move.
terrible session. It was a mistake by the legislature, and it was one of the few, I think, political mistakes that the governor made as well. And I like Mike Kehoe.
I do too.
I think he's overall doing a good job. I mean, he's been very conservative, but I think this one was a swing and a miss, and it was a debacle.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is going to meet with White House officials and lawmakers this week to discuss the company's new AI models, and that's ahead of an August deadline for AI companies to give the government access to the new models that they're developing in order to address things like safety concerns, right? President Trump telling reporters in the Oval Office that his administration is looking at the controls but wants to keep America in the lead on the development.
We have to be careful in both ways. We don't want to restrict them where all of a sudden we come in second to China.
Okay, so the president calls China's AI policies freewheeling. Those are his words. The meeting comes amid public outcry over things like data centers and concerns from investors about an AI bubble. And the bubble is just as the market. If you jump in too much and there's too much money, then there should be. That could be a bubble. But basically, we know this is world changing and security changing and personal safety changing and all the things involved. So how do you allow the free market while still putting guardrails because we're competing with other nations on it?
That's a very delicate balance.
Yeah, and I hope that it's a balance because otherwise the government or people are going to be in a position just to say, no free market, government runs it.
Yeah.
But if it's free market, then China doesn't abide by that.
Right.
It's
a trick box.
Yeah, it is. Let's see here. What else we got going on? I got a few seconds left here. Okay. The Cardinals tried something different last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they won.
Oh, okay. Yay.
It took 10 innings, but the Cardinals did beat the Cubs 3-2. Ashland's face. She's like, you just said that. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Ivan Herrera's double drove in both J.J. Weatherholt and Jordan Walker to finish off the come-from-behind victory. It was 0-0 going in the 10th. Then the Cubs scored in the top of the 10th inning, and then the Cardinals then came back with 3 runs to overcome that.
Yay.
The final game of the series is this afternoon at 1:15. Andre Palante will be on the mound for the Redbirds. I've been a little hard on the Cardinals lately, Ashland, just so you know.
So has the game.
Can you believe politicians nearly doubled state spending since 2019? Yeah, that's twice the rate of inflation.
What do we get for all that extra spending? Nothing.
Yeah, and get this, over 200 loopholes are buried in our tax code, written by lobbyists for wealthy corporations.
Our tax code is rigged against us.
We get taxed on our paycheck, our home, everything we buy.
I guess somebody's got to pay for all that spending.
That's why we need Amendment 5. It puts politicians on a leash.
Forces them to cut taxes and control spending, whether they like it or not.
Amendment 5 closes the loopholes, eliminates income taxes, cuts property taxes, and gives $3,000 a year to average working families.
We decide, not the politicians.
Amendment 5 is the biggest tax cut in Missouri history.
I'm voting yes on Amendment 5. Paid for by Missouri Promise PAC, Mark Ellinger, Treasurer.
Public schools, like public libraries, should be free and open to all. Open enrollment allows parents to choose the school that's the best fit for their children. Maybe another school has a wider curriculum, is bigger or smaller. Maybe a kid is being bullied and would be more comfortable at another school. 75% of parents favor open enrollment. Open enrollment programs now exist in 43 states, and Missouri should join them. Our next-door neighbor, Kansas, has one of the strongest open enrollment policies in the nation. Kansas parents are trusted with choices and options, while Missouri parents must move out of their home to change public schools. And it's a trend. Nationwide, the percentage of students going to their chosen public school has steadily increased. Assigning kids to schools based on their zip code is the old way. Open enrollment is a better way. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The war between the U.S. and Iran is heating up again, with both sides launching missile barrages overnight. An Iranian strike hit a Chinese firm's building in Kuwait, killing one worker. Jordan intercepted Iranian missiles for the second straight day, and the U.S. military struck dozens of Iranian targets, including military command centers, making good on an earlier pledge by President Trump.
We're going to be hitting them very hard because it's our turn to hit them.
Retaliation, the president says, for an earlier thwarted Iranian attack on U.S. troops in Jordan. At least 8 people are dead, including children, in the latest round of Russian drone and missile attacks on Ukraine. The Ukrainians say the barrage targeted multiple regions, including areas near the Polish border. Ukraine has continued to strike Russian targets, including the facilities of a major online retailer. A Republican senator is refusing to let former NIH Director Anthony Fauci off the hook for Fauci refusing to answer any questions from the Senate Homeland Security Committee investigating the origins of COVID-19.
Senator Rand Paul warning that Dr. Fauci's pardon from Joe Biden's auto pen will not save him from prosecution for obstructing Congress. Fauci giving an opening statement and then refusing to answer one question, invoking the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times. The pardon from the former president came on his last hours in office and excuses potential illegal acts committed by Dr. Fauci dating back to January 1st of 2014 through January 19th of 2025. Laura Winters reporting.
Senator Paul raising the possibility of Fauci being held in contempt of Congress, and a vote on that may be held next week. Watching Wall Street, the Dow futures are up 251 points following yesterday's big sell-off. NASDAQ futures almost 400 points higher. More on these stories, townhall.com.
In the War of 1812, our nation fought and won America's religious freedom. Today, that constitutional right is being assaulted once more from within.
Religious liberty and rights in general were under attack. We all of a sudden became the enemy.
In the important new documentary by Dawn's Early Light, anti-Christian bias is exposed at the highest levels of government.
I got 6 months house arrest, 5 years probation.
I'm sorry, our rights have been suspended? Hard to believe that the instruments of government would ever be used to punish faith.
Follow the sweeping investigation of President Trump's task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. The governmental hostility and prejudice is uncovered, and Trump's fight to restore our constitutional liberties and religious freedom.
If we will not be governed by God, we must be governed by tyrants.
Don't miss this powerful new documentary by Dawn's Early Light, the story behind our national anthem. Share it with your church, family, and friends. For a limited time, watch it free at ByDawnsEarlyLightFilm.com. By Dawn's Early Light Film.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch with your first alert forecast. We have issued a first alert weather day as we look off into Friday, but today, Thursday, we're going to be tracking temperatures towards the mid to upper 80s, mostly sunny skies, still low humidity. Into Friday, we have that first alert weather day as we're going to be looking at the potential for a few strong to severe storms possible from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Strong winds and a lesser potential to see an isolated tornado or two going to be possible. Temperatures back towards the lower 80s. Showers and storms will push out into Saturday, highs towards the upper 70s. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Window World of St. Louis. For replacement windows, doors, and siding, call 800-GET-WINDOWS. That's 800-GET-WINDOWS.
Have you heard those ads claiming Amendment 4 stops conservative amendments?
That's not true. It actually stops a couple big cities from pushing radical ideas into our Constitution. Remember 2024? Only 8 out of 114 counties voted to allow transgender surgeries on children.
That's terrifying. We can't let just a handful of counties rule the whole state.
Exactly. Amendment 4 requires broad statewide support and keeps foreign money out of our elections. Vote yes on 4 this August 4th.
Paid for by Freedom Principle MO, Missouri First PAC. Kate Sickles, Treasurer.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for my good friend Harry Parker and the ultimate seafood dining experience at Gulf Shores, GulfShoresRestaurantandGrill.com. Gulf Shores offering a unique dining experience with a vast, mouth-watering menu of all of your favorite delicious dishes, something for everyone's taste or palate. 3 convenient locations, Edwardville, Creve Coeur, and St. Peter's. Dine in, carry out. They've got a food truck, too. Friendly staff looking forward to seeing you, making your dining experience one you will remember. Gulf Shores RestaurantandGrill.com.
Mike Ferguson.
I'm a stud. I'm ballsy. I don't take no from anyone.
Susie Moore.
I disagree on his assessment of the situation.
Get up, St. Louis.
So it's time to get out of bed. Pour yourself the greatest cup of Kofifi the world has ever seen. Rise up with one voice, drain the swamp, and take back our country. Today's the day we're going to do it, and it's time to do it right now, believe me.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Hey, Susie.
Yeah.
The new one didn't do the Kafifi.
I know we're gonna have to haze her.
She's looking at us like we have 3 eyeballs. It's like, what are you people doing?
Weirdos.
Well, that part's true.
That's part of the fun. It's part of the fun.
Hey, welcome to the show, Ashlyn. She's like, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into?
Thanks, guys.
Ashlyn filling in for Jerome, who's going to be heading, down to the Lake of the Ozarks, I guess, here. So he's going to be heading out there just a little bit here. Okay, so looks like that Panera move has been in the works for years, when we were talking about yesterday. And even though this isn't the biggest job loss story that St. Louis has even had this year, it's still just kind of gut punched, I think, a lot of people because of the way the brand was built over the years. So the bosses have been in the Boston area for quite a while. I want to follow up on that here in just a minute. But here's the thing. Listen, Fauci lied. We now have the evidence. Even if you are one of the tribal supporters of Fauci, the evidence is there. You can't really refute that what he was saying publicly and what he was pushing for policy-wise is very different than what he was saying privately and what he actually thought. You can't really deny that, he capitalized on that and made a lot of money for himself off of that. You just can't.
No.
So we're going to talk to Michael Pack at 7:35. He's the one who produced that documentary, The Lockdown Dissidents. And if you want to see that, you can go to the Wall Street Journal's opinion and documentary page, Wall Street Journal Docs. It's on that. So this isn't on some obscure fringe right-wing thing. It's on the Wall Street Journal's documentary page.
Yes.
So we're going to talk to him at 7:35.
Yeah.
And he's been on the show before, but basically with what we now know from Fauci's own documentation, Michael's basically saying, yeah, we were right.
Yeah.
We got it right. And what does it mean? So 7:35, we're going to dig more into that. And by the way, 314-912-1019. We've had some folks have some real spirited reaction to those hearings yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I know a lot of people have questions about the procedurally, like what was done and why there might be a hook there. And I was going to try and give like a 30-second overview.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to separate out the fact that he had the pardon from Biden. Let's separate that out for just a second. Generally speaking, if a witness is going to invoke the Fifth Amendment, from a practical standpoint, they can't really pick and choose which questions they're going to answer and which ones not, because the reason being, if they answer one question, they're opening up the door. They could be then held to have been waiving the privilege.
So let me just clarify what I think a lot, because you were trying to explain this to me yesterday, and I was a little slow on the take on this. So it's a matter of, if he's going to invoke the Fifth Amendment, he's invoking the Fifth Amendment for the entire hearing. He's not invoking it for each answer. When he says those words, he's basically reminding or reasserting, or he's not.
No. You can't just say, I'm going to stand on my Fifth Amendment right, and I'm not going to answer any questions as a blanket statement, unless the people questioning you stipulate that, well, okay, we'll just accept that as your answer, and we'll move on. You have to, if you're going to use it, you have to answer it as to each question that's put to you.
Okay.
Now, Could you selectively invoke it? Theoretically, yes. But the danger in doing that, if you say, I'm going to answer the question about my tie color, but I'm not going to answer the question about the fur and cleavage site on the SARS-CoV-2 virus, whatever, you could theoretically, by making a statement of any sort, open yourself up to the argument that you essentially waived your right if there's any overlap in the topics whatsoever, which some are arguing that by making his prefatory comments to Rand Paul before he initially invoked the Fifth Amendment, he may have done that because he was like, I've had 50 years of service. I've always cooperated with Congress. Which is not true. Which is not true. And one of the things he was going to be asked about. So he may have waived it by making those comments.
Yeah.
The other issue with Fauci is because he had the pardon from Joe Biden, in theory, he doesn't have any legal criminal jeopardy for at least anything that happened before up to the point the pardon was offered to him or given to him. So he has no basis for invoking the Fifth Amendment because he can't be criminally prosecuted for the stuff that happened that he was pardoned for.
And that was what Josh Hawley was citing.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of legal wrangling that we're going to see come out of this, and it is going to be very interesting to see.
Okay, so we're going to be covering this throughout the morning. So before I kind of update on this whole Panera thing in St. Louis here, then there's the big question is, why does it matter? Is this just MAGA going after Fauci? And it's a lot more than just MAGA. It's not just MAGA. Is it just we don't like that guy, or is there a bigger picture of accountability and justice here?
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask, because the people on the left are going to say it's just about partisanship. It's just about, vendettas, that sort of thing. No, I think if you look at what happened, and I mean, this was like the biggest thing in the world, literally, and it reshaped our world, and over 1 million people are dead, and countless kids were affected. Their education was affected. I mean, like the impact of this we're
going to feel it. We're going to feel it for generations.
It's changed the course of human history. Yeah. Okay, so you cannot just sweep it under the rug and say, oh, well, that was a few years ago. We're over it. No, then there was a lot that was done wrong. Some of it maliciously, some of it just, human error. But you have to be able to reckon with that.
And if there's a lesson to be learned here, because to that point you just made, there were a lot of people like, okay, well, they made mistakes, but you know what? They were trying to do something. Just give them some grace. No. No, when you are taking control of people's lives, destroying people's livelihoods, when you are, like you said, changing the course of human history, the answer is, well, we tried, but we got it wrong. That's not good enough. When you use government force, you literally enact tyrannical measures over people. Citizens became subjects. You don't get the leeway to say, well, we tried. You don't get to do that.
Not only that, but the constitutional violations were off the charts. But on top of that, then there were people who profited from it corruptly. Anthony Fauci being example number one. So that needs to be answered for as well.
Okay, so we're going to get into a lot more of that around 7:35 for sure. Sure, we got some things going on around here too. And by the way, keep those comments. Please keep them coming. We're on the Rumble stream. Rumble.com, and then just look up NewsTalkSTL, all one word. You actually don't have to have an account to watch us, but if you want to set up a free account, then you can get involved in the conversation. On Facebook, NewsTalkSTL, NewsTalkSTL is one word. You can comment right below this stream. You can watch us there. On X, same thing, just all one word, NewsTalkSTL, because there's a lot of people I think are joining the show now. And also there's obviously the NewsTalkSTL app. As well, which we can talk about more here in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay, real quick here. This news that hit this week, Panera moving, formerly known as St. Louis Bread Co., moving to Boston, moving to just outside of Boston, one of the suburbs out there. And KMOV's kind of been all over this reporting. David Amilotti has been doing this. Well, it turns out that their executives have basically been making Boston their headquarters for the last couple of years alone.
Yeah, I think the guy that's the new CEO, he's been it for about a year. He was the CFO before that, and he is from Boston. So I don't think he ever moved to the St. Louis area.
And so we're talking, potentially hundreds of employees, pretty high-paying jobs.
Yes.
That are going to be going. So basically some of the brain trust type of jobs, the business brain trust type of jobs.
Upper-level management, that sort of thing, right?
And so they're being offered up to 10% raises, according to KMOV, depending on where they're at. Now, that would be to account for the increased cost of living in Boston, but I think Boston's cost of living is more than 10% higher than it is in St. Louis, would be my guess. And then also relocation expenses, which makes sense. If you want to keep the people, you do that. Now, for everybody who works for them, the reporting is that if they decline and they don't want to move to Boston, they want to stay here in St. Louis, they can do that, and there's still a severance package that they'll be
Right.
offered, and details of that obviously are none of my business
No.
or anybody else's on that. So they're basically, this is essentially a layoff round, except for kind of those upper level management and executive types that they want to take with them. Then they have the option to go if they're willing to make those sort of life changes. And that's corporate America. That's just the reality of it. And I think that a lot of people just really felt that sting, because this now, hundreds of millions of dollars company, maybe, I don't think they're $1 billion yet, but the brand itself literally started with one store in Kirkwood.
Yeah.
And so it's a great success story. And now the company basically feels we've outgrown St. Louis and they're leaving.
Yeah.
And I think
the brand itself, that was St. Louis.
That was St. Louis. I think, and I think that hurts and stings, because
it does.
For all of St. Louis region's pros and cons and faults, we're pretty loyal to the St. Louis stuff.
We are, especially our food.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Mike alluded to this earlier. We got all kinds of different ways for you to listen to us, watch us, keep up with us. But one of the best ways is through the NewsTalk STL app, which you can download on your phone. If you've got a phone, you've got a radio, you can listen to us anywhere, anytime.
Columbo and Company.
Anthony Fauci pleads the fifth 111 times in front of the Senate, and we're mere days away from the August primaries. We'll discuss it all and more Thursday. Plus, Virginia Kruta and Dr. Randy Tobler.
Live and local, weekdays at 2 on Newstalk STL.
I had it happen again this past week. Another media figure just hanging out at the station, visited, and said, I haven't seen him in a while. He goes, Mike, how much weight have you lost? And the funny part is, I said, I've lost 35 or 40 pounds over the last couple of years. And I said, but I told him, I said, I think I weigh about 195 pounds. He goes, you look lighter than that. I said, yeah, but I've been working out and I'm stronger than I used to be. And there's the workout aspect. And I told him, I said, but I got to tell you, I talk about it all the time on the air. Nutrition Stop has been a godsend for me. Mike Ferguson here from my friends at Nutrition Stop. The website is nutritionstop.com. But I would encourage you to run out and visit them just off of Mexico Road in St. Peter's. It's about changing how I put things in my body and on my body. I mean, we're talking about, yes, better food. I rely on them for my advice. I get a lot of my groceries from Nutrition Stop, and they have some great all-natural, unaltered, chemically altered food. And so Nutrition Stop has the advice. This is where I get my protein. This is where I get my vitamins. This is where I get those supplements, because I know that they only use quality and they only use products that have just basically chemical nonsense stuff in them. And my body's reacted so well by having only natural, real food in my body. And also it's reacted to me only using like personal care products, like deodorant that doesn't have a bunch of chemicals and aluminum and stuff like that that's going to get into my systems. And yeah, I feel at the age of 54, I feel like I told him, and I told Mike this, I said, I feel like I'm in my 30s again. And I'm 54. I'm in my mid-50s, and I feel like I'm in my 30s. And so much of that is because of Nutrition Stop. Listen, go check them out. Bring your questions. Bring your aches and pains. To show them. Let them show you what they can do for you through advice and just through better things to put in your body and on your body. It has changed my life. I am begging you, give them a chance to change yours as well. You want to make your family healthy again? You want to make your community healthy again? Start by making yourself healthy again. NutritionStop.com on St. Peter's Mexico Road in St. Peter's. Just put in Nutrition Stop on your maps. It'll take you right there.
Travis Wilson here, State Representative of District 106 in St. Charles, Missouri's first state capital. As a 31-year resident of St. Charles County, I know the issues that are important to our residents, such as protecting women's sports, stopping harmful procedures on minors, and fighting the woke agenda. As your representative, I know what it takes to bring new opportunities to our community to ensure our children have a brighter future. It's been the honor of a lifetime for my family and me to represent you, and I humbly ask for your vote again on August 4th.
Paid for by Wilson for St. Charles. Merle Schneider, Treasurer.
Simply Health with Dr. Brian Deloney.
Peptides are everywhere right now for fat loss, healing, brain health, even longevity. But are they safe? Are they hype? Or are they the future of regenerative medicine? This week, we break down the truth about peptides, what works, what's misunderstood, and what you need to know. Don't miss it.
Simply Health with Dr. Brian Deloney. Saturdays at noon on News Talk STL. To find out more about Simply Health Integrated Medical, log on to simplyhealthintegrated.com.
Whatever the season, you always have a great reason to reach out to Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com for all your tree care needs and so much more. Tim Jones here to remind you Hanson's is your one-stop shop for expert insured tree care, amazing organic mulch, green resource recycling, land clearing, and so much more. Hanson services the entire St. Louis metro, and they also provide their full array of services in and around the Lake of the Ozarks. From tree care to storm cleanup to awesome mulch and more, check out Hanson's at hansonstree.com. That's hansonstree.com.
If you have a phone, you have a radio. Download the all-new NewsTalkSTL app.
Love the all-new app.
And listen anytime, anywhere.
Okay, that property tax debate in St. Charles County.
Yeah.
This has been one of the apartments and the data centers and development and all that sort of thing. They're all interconnected on this. But the property tax thing's been one of the biggest driving factors.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is the county government just made the move that they've been debating about.
Now, when you say the county government, this would be like the St. Charles County Council.
County Council.
Right.
Voting unanimously.
Does the executive doesn't have a role in that?
He does not have a vote on that.
All right.
No.
Okay.
Unless typically in charter counties and in charter cities or even second-class cities, and I mean that from a legal term.
Yes.
But typically what happens is the executive or the mayor only is going to vote when there's a tie.
Got it.
That's normally, now this was unanimous, so, Steve Ellman's vote was not really a factor on this. But what they did was they said, look at our sales tax revenue. It was more robust than expected. Therefore, they voted to zero out the county's part of the property tax bill for this coming year. So when you, Susie, get your property tax bill, because she's a St. Charles County resident.
Right, and we're talking personal property tax.
Personal property tax. We're not talking real we're talking personal property.
Right, because I don't get a real property tax bill directly because I'm an apartment dweller.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How dare you? Just saying. Okay, so what's going to happen is when they itemize out, and it'll be like whatever your local school district is, a fire district in a lot of areas, sometimes the ambulance district, library district, and other times there's other property tax bills for different various things. But for the actual St. Charles County government, that line's going to be zeroed out.
Nice.
This
Which
coming year.
I completely applaud that, and I appreciate the council getting on that and actually taking advantage of the the surplus and being in following through in that. The only thing is, when you first said this to me, my initial reaction immediately was, well, the timing is really, really interesting, seeing as how the election is next Tuesday.
I think that's a fair question.
And seeing as how this has been one of the big talking points in the race for the county executive.
Yeah, because this has been the issue that Bill Eigel's been driving.
Correct.
That we can get rid of property taxes in St. Charles County. Now, this isn't getting rid of all of them. Like, again, most of your property tax bill is going to be there. Just that little bit that's the county government. And to be fair, Steve Ellman and Jason Law have both said, yeah, the county property part of the property tax is next to nothing. It won't really make that much of a difference. It's a few dollars. Well, that's true, but it's a few dollars.
Yeah.
And so that's going to change. But yeah, the fact that they're showing that it can be done eliminates the question as to whether or not it's legal, because that's been one of the arguments. Now, Bill Eigel is saying we can generate enough that we can use that to pay off everybody's property taxes for all these other things, which that remains to be seen. I don't see that ever happening, but that's part of the argument. So, but part of this comes down to the timing question you just brought out. Did the St. Charles County Council just sort of beat the candidates to the punch on this?
It does, to me, have the whiff of like trying to steal thunder. It just does. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to explain it. Because this is something that theoretically they could have announced, a month ago or a week from now. Like the fact that they did it right before the election, it has that. Right. Okay, so let's just recognize that politics is politics. Races are, everyone's fighting to the end, fighting through the tape, and I don't blame them for that whatsoever. I just can't can't not notice it and remark on it.
I think a lot of people were the same way. And it was funny because I happened to see the story on KSDK, and then I didn't see it on the other two. Maybe they'll be up there this morning or later on the other two TV stations in town. So again, I look at KSDK, so you don't have to. But it was there, and it was pretty straightforward. Here's what the vote was, and there
Sure.
wasn't a lot of reference to the campaigns in it. It was just they covered the decision that was made. And the reality is that for most people, this isn't going to mean a lot of difference. But still, it does mean something on this. That doesn't change my opinions of property taxes. That's a whole separate thing on its surface. But it does show that St. Charles County, with the growth that it's had, and that's one of the things, and Steve was quoted in the article, that that they have had businesses moving to St. Charles County. They've had residents, and right now one of the arguments is how do they keep residents out of St. Charles County? I mean that's literally people are wanting to block residential development because people want to go to St. Charles County, and so they've had enough growth that revenue from sales taxes has gone up, which. I don't want to dig too deep into it and throw everybody into a tizzy, but it's kind of one of the arguments that's being made on the Amendment 5 thing, although it's income instead of property taxes, although property taxes are part of Amendment 5 too.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I'm in favor of taking measures to, mitigate people's tax burdens.
Right. Government should take only what is necessary for legitimate government functions and not a penny more. That's my opinion.
Preach. But we're not in that world at this point.
Nope.
So I'm going to actually be looking at my personal property tax bill this afternoon or when I leave here today because I actually have to go get my tags renewed on my car. So I'm going to have that in hand. And so I will take a close look and see what the difference that's going to make for me. Again, appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I also think that shouldn't be the end of the discussion. I mean, we should be looking at, okay, taxation is a necessary evil. Obviously, something has to fund the government. It's required services, that sort of thing. So, but we should be looking at how to do it, structure it in a way that is the least intrusive and takes the least out of the taxpayers' pockets, but still allows the government to function properly. And I don't feel like we get enough conversations about that. I know Amendment 5 is trying to do that,
right.
But it's getting trapped in people's partisan preconceptions.
Right. And a lot of fear mongering. And I've got a feeling the fear mongering is going to work.
Well, it's an effective tactic. That's the thing. I mean, we see that over and over again.
Yeah. So here's a question for St. Charles County. Would this have happened at all had this particular approach and demand not been driven in the campaign?
That is a very good question, and I don't know that there's any way to know that for sure because you're asking people to kind of like second guess, alternative reality.
You can't prove a negative.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. But it's a fair question, and I guess the follow-up question I have too is if we can do this in this way, what else can we be doing?
Yeah.
In a smart way, looking forward, so that we do, mitigate those tax burdens.
Right.
Because that's what we should ultimately be trying to do.
Yeah. So Bill Eigel is arguing we can generate more tax revenue and cut spending enough to have the county pay off, the school property taxes, the fire department. I don't know if that can happen, but I wonder if the truth isn't somewhere in the middle there, that some of that could be mitigated, or there could be additional pressure for those other entities to keep their tax burdens down.
Or I was going to say, I don't know, someone's going to blow a gasket when I say this, but if we're generating this much revenue, maybe the sales tax rate could come down.
Yeah.
I mean, is that crazy to ask?
And that's a competitive thing too. I mean, that's one of the reasons, and again, I don't mean to get into the Amendment 5 thing, but for those who are arguing it's going to double or triple, you're going to have sales tax of 20 some odd %, which is nonsense.
It's not happening.
I talked to Ben Keithley about that, and he said, yeah, you want us to, they're thinking we're going to put a 20% sales tax when Illinois is at 7 or 8 or whatever, and Iowa is at what, and we're going to suddenly price ourselves at that. The market wouldn't allow
that's
that.
Ridiculous.
There's no, because that doesn't make any sense. So in this case right here, if that kind of revenue is being driven, and if then the sales tax rate is meeting the needs into where there's a surplus, at some point do they go, well, let's look at the sales tax on this, because then we can even more attractive to people who want to come buy stuff.
At a minimum, I think the pushback on that would be, well, but you don't always know you're going to have that surplus, and you don't want to put yourself in a bind. Well, I agree with that, but I think there should be a way to tie the one to the other.
Yeah.
So if you're generating a surplus, then there should be some sort of benefit off that. Now, this is one way that they're using to do that, and I appreciate that. And actually, when you think about it, like the sales tax revenue isn't just from St. Charles
it's
residents.
from everywhere,
It's from
yeah.
everywhere. It's from anyone passing through. And then
I've paid a lot of that
Thank
because
you,
that's
Mike.
where I tend to go.
Thank you, Mike.
That's where I tend to go get something. Now, there's a sports bar that I really like around here by the radio station, but there's places where me and my buddies go meet for lunch and drinks all the time.
And we residents of St. Charles County appreciate that because you're going to make our personal property tax bill just a little lighter next
You're
year.
welcome. You're welcome.
Right. But that's, I feel like there's ways to look at this, and there's approaches that we could be taking, we as a county, we as a state, that are better in terms of economic growth and in terms of keeping taxpayers' money, more of their money in their pockets.
Yeah. And you can pay me back, like bring me a cookie or something, or a protein bar, just saying something like that.
Sure.
As well. Yep.
I'll get right on that.
Vicky says, since we pay so much school tax, meaning the property taxes for the schools, we should have a say on how they are spending and wasting it. Get rid of at least one half of the bureaucracy. Use it for teachers and students. That's why those school board races are so crucial. Bureaucracy pays so much, and frankly, you got to take on the teachers' unions for that too, and the administrators as well.
Yep. Among the reasons that Anthony Fauci got hammered and humiliated yesterday was because of his part in the guidance that locked us down for years. How much of his comments were flat out lies? At 7:35, we're going to dig into that part of the story.
Yoski woski, whiskey whiskey. Can you pour me a shot of whiskey?
From the NewsTalkSTL Weather Center.
I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch with your first alert forecast. We have issued a first alert weather day as we look off into Friday, but today, Thursday, we're going to be tracking temperatures towards the mid to upper 80s, mostly sunny skies, still low humidity. Into Friday, we have that first alert weather day as we're going to be looking at the potential for a few strong to severe storms possible from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Strong winds and a lesser potential to see an isolated tornado or two are going to be possible. Temperatures back towards the lower 80s. Showers and storms will push out into Saturday, highs towards the upper 70s. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chance Scott.
John Beal knows it right after a hailstorm. New roofing companies start popping up everywhere. But the Small Business Administration reports 96% of them go out of business within the first 5 years. So how good is that warranty? John Beal started in the roofing business helping his granddad and his dad. Always offering the best roof, best price, best guarantee. John Beal Roofing, not some fly-by-the-night operation. Call my friend John, 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
Larry Connor's Commentary, brought to you by Vincent's Jewelers, offering a wide selection of jewelry, including lab-grown diamonds, affordable earrings, bracelets, necklaces, and rings, up to 75% off their natural counterparts. Visit VincentsJewelers.com. This is Larry Connor's Commentary on News Talk STL.
The head of the Democrat National Committee is beginning to feel like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Now, we've talked about the fiscal crisis at the DNC, having to put up the headquarters as collateral for a $2 million loan. The deficit due to poor decisions, and longtime Democrats holding back checks because Democrat socialists are inside the tent. They might be small in number, but they're holding the whip. The DNC chair, Ken Martin, is in the center, surrounded by socialist lions, tigers, and bears. Oh, my. And the whip is cracking. Even the liberal New York Times admits Ken is losing it, quoting 3 sources that said he threw a phone at a fellow worker. Then he had to meet with human resources. 3 months before the midterms, when the Democrat National Committee chair should be on major networks pushing Democrats, he's lashing out at his staff. Reportedly, he warned his staff, "The weaker I am, the weaker you are. And it pisses me off when I see leaks from this building." Yeah, that sounds like a guy that is not paranoid, right? He's a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Oh, what a shame.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
I'm Bill Eigel. I'm a no on data centers. Last year, when a new hyperscale data center was up for a vote in St. Charles City, I'm the only candidate for county executive who stood with you in opposition. Meanwhile, Steve Ellman was writing op-eds in support of data centers. In fact, he spent $400,000 of your taxpayer money to identify 6 locations just for data centers in St. Charles County. I'm Bill Eigel, and if you don't want data centers in our county, that I'm asking for your vote on August 4th.
Paid for by iGo for Missouri. Lisa Borchers, Treasurer.
Mike Ferguson here. Retirement should be a time you can relax. No more stress from work. But there's one thing you can't forget about when retiring. That's your money. Do you have enough saved to fund your income for life and keep up with inflation? How will you claim your Social Security benefits? And what about long-term care? The ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel is here to help answer all of these questions. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9, right here on News Talk STL. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create an investment portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Hello, Kirk Hilsinger, Chairman of the Republican Party, City of St. Louis. We are urging everyone to get out and vote this August primary. We need your vote every election. We remind you to vote yes on Amendment 4. Stop out-of-town money from being used to bypass your elected state legislators. And vote yes on Amendment 5. Tell businesses fleeing high-tax states like Illinois that Missouri is open for business and help lower our income and personal property taxes. Help us fight democratic socialism in its backyard by visiting stl-gop.com and donate, come to a meeting, or volunteer to help out.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
For doing that. It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace. So let me ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Okay, and then a lot of those lines of questioning also relied on his private but government realm diaries, for lack of a better term, that show that Anthony Fauci was not telling the truth on so many different things. Mm-hmm. Now, there's the documentary that's available now that you can see at the Wall Street Journal's documentary page called The Lockdown Dissidents, and it was produced by Michael Pack, who joins us right now. Michael, welcome back to the program here. So a lot of what you were documenting in that film, do you feel vindicated right now? Because you and people like us and others who are pointing, saying this guy's lying, he's hurting people, he's not telling the truth. I don't think he believes what he says he believes. Well, it turns out that we were right, and you were right. So how are you feeling when you were watching not just that Fifth Amendment parade, but also seeing the results of those private writings, which, by the way, were done on the job, so they are public domain. Mm-hmm. But what's your reaction to all of this coming into the spotlight?
Well, you're quite right. It does vindicate everything that is in my documentary. But I don't think that my documentary, as you know, we tell the whole story of the lockdowns from its beginning in Wuhan through the beginning of the Biden administration. And anyone who follows the story knows that Anthony Fauci, and not only Anthony Fauci, but others like Deborah Birx, chose to ignore contrary evidence that the lockdowns were not working. I mean, the evidence comes from what we call lockdown dissidents, Jay Bhattacharya, Scott Atlas, and others. He felt so certain that he was right, that he could not only ignore, but actually suppress and go after these people, denying them their First Amendment rights, trashing their reputation. So that kind of arrogance, and we tell the story in not without exposing any great secrets. This was on the surface. Now that we look back, 5 years later, all this was apparent. I personally think that I hope what the hearings and the diary does is bring this out to an even bigger mass audience. But the thing that's amazing, I think, about the diary, to go to your question, the thing that surprised me is that he was the degree of narcissism and arrogance and love of the media. I mean, it was so over the top that even I was surprised. And I think in the end, that may do even more damage to Anthony Fauci. The fact that his policies caused the death and suffering of millions may not count as much as his looking ridiculous in the public eye.
That's ironic. Good morning, Michael. This is Susie Moore. We've talked about this a little bit earlier. We're 5-6 years down the road from all of this unfolding, and in a lot of ways, we've moved on and going on about our lives. But seeing a lot of this brings up feelings that definitely were very intense in that time frame: anger, frustration, just disbelief at what we were being told and how things were being handled. As you were putting this documentary together, were you finding that amongst the people that you were interviewing and who were featured in it, as far as the those kind of feelings of frustration, rage, was that part of this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so we tell the story, the lockdowns emerged at the end of 2019, and they came here at the beginning of 2020. By March, Jay Bhattacharya, for instance, had conducted a study in Santa Clara that proved the lockdowns did not work, that they didn't really hurt young people. There's no reason to shut down the schools. And as he said, he thought when he came out with this data, everybody would say, oh, wonderful, great, we don't have to lock down. And he was initially shocked at the vituperation and attacks that he suffered, as opposed to, people being happy. And I think from then on, from March on, I mean, people were shocked at the degree in which their ideas were suppressed, and the government acted even to deny their First Amendment rights and to go after them personally. I think it was kind of shocking. I hope that all those people, Jay Bhattacharya, Scott Atlas, and others, feel vindicated. I gather that they do, and they should.
Yeah, and see, that I think is the crucial point as to why all of this matters, that it's not just a bunch of Republicans piling on Fauci, okay? Is what you just said right there is like when the facts came out, that should have been a big sigh of relief, and those in power and those controlling the levers of power, which you could argue Fauci and Collins and Birx were doing, is that they should have gone, oh, thank goodness. Okay, guys, don't worry. Go back to normal. Hey, some of you are going to get a flu-like thing. Be careful. Just like, the flu is deadly to a lot of people. This could be too. But you know what? We're going to be okay. Let's just get through it. That's not what happened. They doubled down, because then at that point, it seems, and this to me was a lot of what I was taking from your documentary, is that it quickly became something that was not about health and not about protecting people from it became about protecting the authority, complete authority of the government over the individual.
That is absolutely true. And these people were drunk on their own power, as the diary makes clear. And they didn't want to admit they were wrong or change paths or, and they were happy to have that kind of power. You can see it in the Fauci diaries. I do think, although I think this has really been a useful thing with the diaries and the hearings, it isn't only Anthony Fauci. It's a whole bunch of them in the government and all their minions. And I think the reason we made the documentary, and you alluded this to earlier too, it could happen again. We could do it again. If you only think it's one guy, Fauci, and you get rid of him and the problem is over, that is a big mistake. We as the American people allow the government to tell us what to do and give up our basic rights and our freedoms. And we shouldn't let that happen again. Next time it won't be Anthony Fauci. It'll be somebody else. And, it's not only, it's beyond the personal.
It is beyond the personal. I mean, so I'm the deputy managing editor at Red State, and I know that we tried in vain a lot to cover a lot of this back in that time frame and met all kinds of censorship hurdles that we ran into. Is the level of suppression, the censorship that Bhattacharya and others experienced, is that something that you focus on also in the documentary?
Yeah, the first half tells the story of the lockdowns and whether they were right or wrong, and the second half more or less talks about both their suppression and then how it finally came out after Elon Musk bought Twitter and other things revealed that social media companies were not just shadow banning them on their own, but under government pressure. So yeah, I think that is really significant. I mean, I think, except for people, maybe your listeners and others, people have not completely absorbed the fact that the government suppressed reputable counter-scientific information. It's not only a violation of free speech, it's really a violation of the principles of science, where you're supposed to debate these things in the open. But the government felt so confident that they were right, that they could suppress other views, which is really, it's fundamentally against the American way of thinking of rights. We have freedom of speech. It doesn't come from the government. It comes from God, laws of nature, nature's God. And the government cannot take it away because no one knows for certain who's right. There has to be a process of arguing it out. And that kind of certainty that leads to that kind of suppression that you experienced yourself when you tried to publish things is a deeply dangerous thing and really contra to the American ideals that we celebrate here on the 250th anniversary of the country.
All right. The documentary you can find is called The Lockdown Dissidents. You can find it, among other places, at the Wall Street Journal's documentary page. Michael Pack produced it, who's with us right now. Just a minute or so left here, Michael. The bigger question then is going to be, and you referenced this a second ago, have we learned our lesson? Because we have seen government at local, state, and even to some degree federal levels have looked for a health something somewhere, tried to poke around to see how much they can scare us and to see if we'll fall for it again. I've personally seen that. So far, people have went, no, don't even try it. But I wonder at some point, do they wear that down? And at some point, do they try to do something like this again? Because government authoritarians are going to do what government authoritarians do. And one of their missions is to make sure that we, the people, understand who's the boss and who's in charge, and they don't like us challenging them.
I do worry that we haven't learned our lesson. I think the rise of socialism is a good indication that a whole bunch of people, instead of learning that maybe you can't trust the government, now want to trust the government to do everything for them. You know, grocery stores, transportation, housing, just hand it over to the government. So while some people have learned the lesson, and maybe they're disproportionately represented among their listeners, there are a whole bunch of people who not only didn't learn the lesson, learned the opposite of the lesson. And that's why I think people have to listen to your show, watch my documentary, and as you say, it's free. Go to WSJ.com or our page, PalladiumPictures.com, or its own little homepage, WSJ.com/opinion docs. See all three of the ones we've done with the Wall Street Journal. But we have to keep telling the story and try to reach a broader audience. I mean, that's the good thing about the hearings, and I hope our film on a site like WSJ.com can reach people who haven't heard it before or who took the absolutely wrong, diametrically wrong lesson from it. So I fear we haven't learned our lesson, and it's incumbent upon us in this part of the media to make sure people do understand it.
All right. Once again, the documentary is called The Lockdown Dissidents, produced by Michael Pack. Michael, good talk to you again. Thanks so much. Appreciate the insight.
Great. Thanks. Nice talking to you both.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, we talked about this. Early voting is already underway, but the election day is next Tuesday. And if you're wanting to know what's on your ballot before you go to the polls, just so you have an idea what you're doing, best place to do that, go to NewsTalkSTL.com. You can see where you can get a hold of your sample ballot and check out who all's running, what the issues are, so that you walk into the voting booth prepared.
Phone. You have a radio.
Download the all-new NewsTalkSTL app.
Love the all-new NewsTalkSTL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the NewsTalkSTL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Hey, you guys, it's Susie. You've heard me talk about Window World before. That's because that's who you want to go to if you are thinking about redoing your windows. And this is a big deal. It's a very big purchase. It's an important thing to do for your home. And it's probably not something you do very often. So you want to know that you're going with a company that is experienced, that is providing a great quality product, and that's going to treat you right and give you good customer service. You get all of that with Window World. First off, the product itself. Their windows are durable, they're secure, they're energy efficient, they're built with double strength glass that you don't typically see in replacement windows. Plus, with Window World, you know you're covered with a lifetime warranty that includes parts, glass breakage, and labor. That is a big deal. And they don't just do windows. They can also help with siding, doors, basically everything on the outside of your home except for your roof or your garage door. And it's their commitment to customer service that really shines. Unlike a lot of companies, Window World's customer service team is available 7 days a week. So if you've got a question, a problem, whatever, you call them up, they are there for you. That commitment to customer service shows. Over half of their appointments come from repeat customers or referrals. Plus, they're big in the community. They've raised over $4 million over the years for charities like Action for Autism and St. Jude. And Window World's been helping improve the look and energy efficiency of more than 80,000 homes right here in St. Louis. The St. Louis location's been owned, operated, and managed by born and raised St. Louisans for more than 23 years. Right now, they're offering 36 months same as cash financing with approved credit. So if you've been putting it off, you've been thinking you might need to do it, call Window World, 1-800-GET-WINDOWS.
When Donald Trump needs conservative votes to help pass his agenda for Missouri, Representative Tricia Burns never answers the call. Tricia Burns has missed 370 votes. Burns is bucking President Trump's priorities. Burns did not vote to stop DEI initiatives, prevent China from owning Missouri land, defund Planned Parenthood, and Burns did not vote to ban boys from girls' sports. Tricia Burns not showing up for Missouri and President Trump. Instead, Tricia Burns spends her time pulling pranks on the suicide prevention hotline. Yes, you heard that right. Tricia Burns lied to the police and staged a fake suicide emergency. She sent a series of messages to the hotline and said she, quote, had a gun to her head, end quote. When she got caught, she said there'd be no consequences because she's a politician. By August 4th, vote to show Tricia Burns that there are consequences to being bad at your job. Cut the Bullpack paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
Tim Jones here for Comprehensive Chiropractic in Eureka, the premier chiropractic and sports performance facility in the region. They've helped me recover from day-to-day aches and pains for years. And here's something special, personal training programs. Whether you're an athlete committed to increasing performance, recovering from an injury, or just want to get healthier and lose weight, their personal training programs will help you reach your goals and stay there. Comprehensive Chiropractic in Eureka, online at cchiropractic.com. That's cchiropractic.com.
JC's Wayback Machine.
Saturday is the 45th anniversary of the debut of MTV. We'll reminisce with VJ Kennedy. And this week in 1994, it was the first in a series of outdoor concerts at Busch Stadium. And you'll hear the only known recording of the first two songs that night with Billy Joel and Elton John. All brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9 on NewsTalk STL.
Please don't fall asleep. I'll get you a caffeinated drink. We'll take a ride. Forget about the day we both died in each other's arms. These risky dreams will fall asleep at the wheel of that.
Okay, so that verbal beatdown of Anthony Fauci, first of all, it was well-deserved.
Yeah, it was.
But it was not the end. Could have been just the next step. And it could have been more than just showmanship and some of these lawmakers, including Josh Hawley, giving him the what for. It wasn't just about that. There were bigger consequences involved.
Yeah, I think there was a strategy in play here, even recognizing that he might plead the fifth, because he may have tripped himself up.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to cover that here just a little bit. Also, property tax bill is going to look a little different in St. Charles County this time around. And Cardinals, they actually went into extra innings. They had quite an interesting 10th inning. We'll tell you about that. 7:53 right now. Let's do one more news dump.
The Morning News Dump, brought to you by STL Fenceworks. The Morning News Dump.
Are you joking? Is this a joke?
Listen, folks, the Morning News Dump.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
Okay, a lot of that happened yesterday. A lot of that. So that's former, obviously, you know the voice, former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, invoking the Fifth Amendment, refusing to answer questions during Wednesday's Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee hearing. And that was all about the origins of and the government response to the whole COVID-19 thing. Yep. Rand Paul, the chair of that committee, saying that they are going to seek to hold him legally responsible for the way that he invoked the Fifth Amendment.
Because you refused to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt.
Okay, so comment there, Susie, on what Senator Rand Paul just said because of the way you invoked that.
Yeah. So what he's saying is you, because of the pardon that you were given, you're not exposed to criminal liability. So you're relying on the Fifth Amendment is disingenuous and not proper, basically. That could be tricky because maybe he's subject to state criminal charges, which Florida's already looking at. So they could turn around and say, well, yeah, but he does have some legal jeopardy, so it was okay to invoke it. He still may be screwed up by giving his statement at the front of it. He'd still probably open the door. And I think there's going to be a lot of legal wrangling over this.
And I think we're going to learn a lot more if, like Rand Paul said, these hearings happen next week because there's some question about the scheduling and when they're in session and when they're not. But we'll find out more. Okay, Panera offering some St. Louis employees raises and up to $50,000 in relocation support if they leave the Lou and make the move to the Boston area. And we're talking executive level, upper management.
We're not
and
talking
executive.
store level employees.
No. Now that follows the news that the company is moving its headquarters there. Employees who decline the offer and they want to stay in St. Louis, they're still being offered a voluntary severance package. So essentially we've got a hybrid layoff round is what we've got here. Yeah. Hundreds of jobs are affected by the change, and that's not the only changes coming to the marketplace here. FedEx is closing 2 metro area locations, and that's going to affect about 150 jobs. KMOV's Heather Sullivan has the details.
So here are the impacted locations. One in Earth City and another off South Henley Road at the Maplewood area. FedEx said the closures will be permanent. The company says the closures are due to reorganization. And here's a breakdown of the impact so far. The Earth City FedEx has 75 full-time employees. The Maplewood FedEx employs 68 full-time workers. The company says the employees will be given options such as transferring.
So at the very least, we're not looking at 150 necessarily job losses, but we're looking at rearrangement. And there'll probably be some trimming down as well.
Probably.
They don't rearrange. They don't restructure just to rearrange the deck chairs.
No, not usually.
Sort of thing. Okay, property tax bills for St. Charles County residents are going to be just a little smaller this coming year. Pointing to strong sales tax revenue, the county council voted this week to zero out its part of the property tax bill, at least for 1 year. That is a small part of the overall bill, as most property taxes are collected by school districts, fire and ambulance districts, library districts, and other local jurisdictions. All right. The Cardinals, they won. I don't get to say that very often.
No,
They won.
it's like shocking.
All right, it took 10 innings, but the Cardinals beat the Cubs 3-1. Ivan Herrera's double drove in both J.J. Weatherholt and Jordan Walker to finish off that come-from-behind victory. Final game of that series starts this afternoon at 1:15. Andre Palante going to be on the mound for the Redbirds for this one.
Bill, you're an old politician.
Yup, sure am.
So you know the old-timers warned that someone trying to sell you a pig in a poke was a con man.
Well, sure.
Well, no offense, Tom, but your Politicians Amendment 5 is a pig in a poke, allowing politicians to raise our taxes without a vote of the people. And the Politicians Amendment 4 takes away our power to do anything about it. Well, let's look at what's really inside Forward 5.
Oh, don't do that.
5 hits hardest seniors and those struggling financially with new taxes on services like doctor visits, in-home care, and rent. Sales taxes could more than triple. For up to 80% of Missourians, it's a tax hike. And Amendment 4 ends majority rule, allowing a minority of the most liberal statewide voters in one district to effectively end our power to stop corruption and out-of-control spending and taxing.
Slick plan, huh?
No, Tom. 4 and 5 are schemes that hurt citizens and transfer our power and our money to politicians and lobbyists. That's why I'm voting no on the politicians' Amendments 4 and 5.
Paid for by Missourians for fair taxation.
The radical left let crime and drugs pour into our nation, and they let biological men into girls' sports. But here in Missouri, if there's a problem, we fix it. That's why Ann Wagner's fixing the mess the radical left made and delivering for us. Wagner voted to ban biological men from competing in girls' sports, and she voted to fund the police and provide more resources for Border Patrol agents, keeping our families, communities, and children safe. And Ann Wagner didn't stop there. In Congress, Wagner passed the largest working-class tax cut in American history, kept big government out of our business, protected our way of life, and ensured our communities remain safe. That's why Ann Wagner's endorsed by the Missouri Farm Bureau and Missouri Fraternal Order of Police. Vote Ann Wagner for Congress on August 4th.
I'm Ann Wagner, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Ann Wagner for Congress.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Promises made, promises kept. President Trump had vowed to retaliate for a failed Iranian attack on U.S. troops in Jordan, and the American military has delivered on that pledge.
The U.S. military has said it has completed what it described as a heavy wave of strikes against Iran. Iran responded by striking a Chinese firm's building in northern Kuwait. U.S. Central Command released footage on Thursday of planes taking off from the flight deck of an aircraft carrier and aerial footage of targets on the ground hit by airstrikes. U.S. Central Command says the attacks on Iran targeted Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. The latest U.S. barrage on Iran comes after the U.S. partnered with Saudi Arabia to strike Iranian-backed militias in neighboring Iraq, killing at least 26 people. I'm Karen Shamas.
Earthquake death toll in Japan continues to rise, now up to 25. Search and rescue crews continue their work in what's a race against the clock. That quake struck Japan's southern main island of Kyushu on Tuesday. Higher humidity, cooler temperatures, and a bit of rain offering hope for relief from devastating wildfires in southwest France. 84,000 of the 200,000-plus evacuees now being allowed to return to their homes. Fastest-growing Ebola outbreak ever has killed more than 1,500 people in eastern Congo. Official data out today shows a 50% spike in deaths in about a week. As of Tuesday, there were 3,442 cases and 1,521 deaths. The Fed's preferred inflation barometer grew more slowly last month, rising 3.7% from a year ago. Also, the U.S. economy grew 1.5% April through June. Wall Street futures ahead of the opening bell. Dow futures up 189. NASDAQ futures 446 points higher. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from big wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch with your first alert forecast. We have issued a first alert weather day as we look off into Friday, but today, Thursday, we're going to be tracking temperatures towards the mid to upper 80s, mostly sunny skies, still low humidity. Into Friday, we have that first alert weather day as we're going to be looking at the potential for a few strong to severe storms possible from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Strong winds and a lesser potential to see an isolated tornado or two going to be possible. Temperatures back towards the lower 80s. Showers and storms will push out into Saturday, highs towards the upper 70s. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Republican Chris Sander is the true fiscal conservative running for state representative. Chris Sander says it's time to stop Travis Wilson giving away hundreds of millions of dollars in state tax credits to special interests, billions of tax dollars given away to private developers of empty office buildings in St. Louis and sports stadiums in Kansas City. Chris Sander will work to bring our tax dollars home to St. Charles. We need a representative in our corner, not another lobbyist for St. Louis or Kansas City. Please vote for Chris Sander, Republican for state representative, the true fiscal conservative.
Paid for by Sander for Missouri. Patricia Van Dyne, Treasurer.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros and Exteriors, your all-in-one service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. Christine and I discovered Gutter Pros and Exteriors when we bought our home and inherited a gutter problem. And they've also repaired siding damage on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros team are also the best for repairing other exterior damage, including fascia, soffit, and all siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros and Exteriors can help your home or business right now at gutterpros.com.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
So Anthony Fauci testified in front of a Senate committee. He took the fifth more than 111 times. He said it all exactly the same way. We'll talk to Tony Kennett from the Daily Signal about that Thursday at 11:05.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson.
Big guy, one of the biggest in the world.
Susie Moore.
Do you think he's ready?
He's not ready.
Get up, can't you hear the alarm?
Get up, St. Louis.
I have a feeling that by the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
You know, voters aren't just picking leaders. They're going to be picking the direction of whatever your preferred party is. And I think that's probably more pronounced in the Democratic Party than it is the Republican Party. But these upcoming primary elections are going to be fascinating. Election day, obviously, Tuesday. On the Missouri side, at least for sure, you can vote early right now. Once again, go to newstalkstl.com and you can click on your sample ballot and find that so you can be better prepared. We're now joined by Elliott Davis. Elliott, always appreciate chatting with you here. I want to get to something.
Thank you, buddy. Great to be here.
Yeah, and I just saw that you posted some thoughts on the whole St. Charles County property tax thing. I want to get to that in a few minutes, but let me start where I just kind of previewed there. Directional vote for Democrats in particular here in the St. Louis area. You've been covering extensively the Cori Bush and Wesley Bell contest here. This isn't just about whether you like Wesley or Cori better. This is a directional vote that's going to tell us a lot, I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that it's going to tell us a lot about where the Democratic voters and Democratic Party of this region is going to go over the next several years.
This is one of the biggest issues in the United States, in my opinion. Cori Bush is endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America. And the socialists have been really in a wave and a romp all across this country with victories in New York, 3 congressional seats they picked up there, Colorado, Michigan. And so they've got a governor, I think, running a socialist candidate for governor who's leading that Democratic race in Wisconsin and D.C. And so they're making substantial gains. And so St. Louis could be the Waterloo for the socialists. At least it could slow down the momentum. But for Wesley Bell, it means that he has to pull out all the stops because at issue here is the very heart of the party. Which direction, what kind of party is the Democratic Party going to be? Is it going to be the Democratic Socialist Party? Is that where it's headed? Because these socialists really have a lot of momentum, and obviously that bodes well for Cori Bush. One of the major issues in this is Israel, support for Israel. Cori Bush, of course, dead set against military aid for Israel. Wesley Bell has been a staunch supporter of Israel, which means that Wesley Bell has to get out a lot of his Jewish supporters to help pull this one off.
Yeah, and
so he's in a race.
Yeah, here's what's interesting on that. Aside from the Middle Eastern stuff, because Cori Bush has stood with some really fringe, literally like pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist people on there. So other than that issue, when you look at the basic votes, I don't know that you're going to get a very different vote from Wesley Bell and Cori Bush on most of the stuff they're going to deal with. But even given that, you've got differences in how much can they work with the rest of Congress and bring things back to St. Louis? And then again, what kind of image, what kind of direction will they set for the other Democrats here in the St. Louis area?
Well, I don't know if it's that complicated. To me, it comes down to the kind of it's odd, but let's call Wesley Bell a more traditional candidate. I mean, he's leftist, but he's less leftist than the socialists are. So I think that the big thing this country is grappling with now, which direction is it going to go in? Are we going to go in a socialist, communist direction, or just a obviously the usual Democrat, Republican, whatever. You've seen some Democratic leftists, but that is the major issue, and that could be very significant. Obviously, in the years to come, what kind of country are we going to have in the years ahead? And so that's what I see in this whole deal. Cori Bush, if she gets there, she will have a lot more socialist company in Congress. I mean, we could have 5 socialist representatives. They could be in a position where they can influence national policy. And if you read the manifesto, and I'm not going to harp on this very much, but if you read the manifesto of the Democratic Socialists of America, it's more like a communist manifesto. So that's a real concern. We shall see how that turns out.
Yeah, we're visiting with the great Elliott Davis right here. So let's talk about another race here in the area. Again, let's stay with the Democrats. You've been working to interview all of the main candidates, the key players in the race for county executive. Obviously, the Republicans only have one candidate. So whoever wins the Democratic race, for those who haven't been following her, they're going to face Dennis Hancock in that race. But you, and I know there were some forums, I think it was at your church, that you were posting about. What do you make of this race? Because in St. Louis County, this is I would call it a blue county, but I would call it maybe a lighter blue county. But this is one of those where the Democrat, I would think, would be the favorite going in, but it's not a shoo-in. So what are the Democratic voters in St. Louis County weighing when they decide who's going to face off against Dennis Hancock?
Okay, St. Louis County is a blue county, any way you cut it. Hancock is going to have could he win? Possibly, but it is more likely that whoever wins the Democratic primary will go away with this thing. There is a poll out today on this race. It has taken some twists and turns. I know State Senator Brian Williams was just the odds-on favorite from the very beginning. He was going to oppose Sam Page. Sam Page said he wasn't going to run for re-election. When that happened, then Jake Zimmerman, the St. Louis County assessor, jumped in the race. But still, it looked like Brian Williams was the odds-on favorite. He was the better favorite. Odds makers were giving him the odds of winning this thing. But what happened was Angela Walton Mosby, another African-American, got in the race. She's from North County as well. That cut into Brian Williams' support. And so that evened out this race. There is a poll that's out today. I'm getting my notes here. Anyway, there is a poll out today in that particular race, and the race actually shows Jake Zimmerman ahead in a shocker. But the interesting part on that is that the poll was commissioned by, this is in St. Louis Magazine, that has published this poll. The poll shows that has Jake Zimmerman leading by 28%, Brian Williams 19%, Angela Mosley at 10%, but the poll was commissioned by Jake Zimmerman.
Of course, yeah.
And Brian Williams says he has a campaign too. Brian Williams says he has his own poll that shows him ahead. But the dynamics of this race really has changed since Angela Walton Mosley got in that race. It seemed, and then it's been really interesting the things that have happened. Brian Williams supporters on the county council actually tried to raise the pay for county executive. Remember, Sam Page not running. They tried to raise the pay for the county executive $55,000 in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of a financial crisis. His buddies on the county council, Rita Days and Shalonda Webb, helped to pass a legislation to raise the pay for county executive for like $55,000, boosting the pay up to from $140,000 to $195,000. That actually passed due to a loophole in the St. Louis County charter. Sam Page was able to veto it. They didn't get it, so that raise won't happen. But what they are doing, they're not giving up on giving their buddies raises. What happened is that, so now they're putting a measure on the ballot called Proposition C, asking voters to give them the power to be able to give the raises to their buddies. So when you see Proposition C on the ballot, St. Louis County voters, you know it's a deal that they are using to try to get voters to give them the power to do what they couldn't do, the power to give big raises to their buddies. So a lot of changes going on in St. Louis County.
Yeah, and the way that that's worded on the ballot's very strange. It talks about correcting mistakes and all that kind of stuff, so it's very convoluted for that proposition as well. Okay, so just a couple minutes left here visiting with Elliott Davis. You just posted on this. We talked about this a little bit earlier today as well, is that in St. Charles County, one of the driving factors, one of the driving debates has been over property taxes. I mean, there's other issues, big issues as well. And then the county council, it turns out this week, votes to zero out their part of the property tax bill from the county government. Now, that's a small part of it. It's about $3.4 million, something like that. But what's interesting is that there was a fight over whether or not any or all of that property tax bill could be zeroed out. I mean, Bill Eigel driving that issue more so than the others. But does that tell you anything about the county council doing that part of it? And it's a small part of the bill, but it's still, I think, a significant development.
Symbolic, yeah. It tells you that the county council would rather have Steve Ellman as the county executive, because that's not the only issue that they've really taken off the table. That's Eigel was pushing. Former State Senator Bill Eigel, who of course ran for governor and lost, although he did pretty good in that governor's race, he still lost it. And one of his big issues was getting rid of the personal property taxes. And so I remember Steve Ellman had decided not to run. He's been a 20-year incumbent, decided not to run. Again, in 2023, I think he announced that he was not going to run. Eigel got in the race. Ellman fears the impact of Eigel. He fears that a lot of what he's accomplished with population increases, housing increases, and low crime in St. Charles County, he figures that will become undone by Eigel, and so he got back in the race. And so the council, what they have done is taken a lot of the Eigel campaign issues off the table. For example, property taxes, they zeroed that out. The data center issues, they took that off the table with a moratorium on that. Then Eigel was making a big issue out of too many new apartments coming to St. Charles County. Well, what did the council do? They passed a moratorium on new housing expansion, a 6-month moratorium on new apartment developments. And so what they are doing, really, they're doing everything they can to help Ellman in this election. And I think the council is showing who they support, who they want as county executives, because every time Eigel comes up with an issue, they pass an ordinance to get that off the, to get rid of that issue, to take it off the table. And that's exactly what they've been doing.
All right, Elliott Davis. Of course, you can check out the best way, I would say, Elliott's your Facebook page, right? Elliott Davis TV. Is that the way to follow and be in touch with you?
It is. We have, we're now up to about 217,000 followers. So we have been pretty active, and obviously pretty active in this election as well. It gives, between that, the amendments, we're not going to go into all the amendments, but I will tell St. Louis County voters, if you see Prop C, it's designed to give the St. Louis County Council the ability to be able to give raises to their buddies. I've never seen anything so blatant, so blatantly political, and such a blatant waste of taxpayers' money at a time when the council is saying we're broke. they're saying if we don't pass Proposition U, the use tax deal, then we're going to have to lay off people and do all kinds of stuff, right? But Prop C is just a way to give them the power to be able to raise salaries for their buddies.
All right, Elliott Davis, thanks so much, my friend. Really appreciate you being on the program. Hopefully, we're going to talk to you again real soon. You're getting another call or text from me, man.
Sounds good, buddy.
Thanks a lot. All right, and then let's get some thoughts in on the situation with Anthony Fauci as well. Those hearings were more than just about Republicans getting a chance to berate Anthony Fauci and also John Fetterman as well. Give me your thoughts on that. 314-912-1019. You're going to hear from some of those who were involved and from some of the comments at the hearings. And yes, I had to bleep one. We'll tell you about that just ahead.
Don't try to make me stop, no inspiration. You have a soul so dark, it is no more. And all at once depart, no destination. Making cold my heart to fight your war.
Hey, it's Columbo reminding you that when the fish are biting, gear up with the best at Bluff City Outdoors. They have a huge selection of all the gear you need for your next trip on the water, including great products from all the top brands in the industry like Mega Bass, Mad Cats, Penn, and more. Plus, join us every Saturday at 11 a.m. on the Bluff City Outdoors Show for great conversation and the local fishing report. Open 7 days a week, 1 mile east of Fast Eddie's at 2813 East Broadway in Alton. Follow them on Facebook and at BluffCityOutdoors.com.
Travis Wilson here, State Representative from District 106 in St. Charles, Missouri's first state capital. I wanted to remind everyone that we have a crucial primary election coming up on Tuesday, August 4th. No excuse, in-person voting has already begun, and I'd appreciate your vote to continue my service for the great people of St. Charles. For more information on early voting or to learn more about me and the important issues facing Missouri, visit me on Facebook at Wilson for St. Charles. Thank you, and may God continue to bless the state of Missouri.
Paid for by Wilson for St. Charles. Merle Schneider, Treasurer.
Hey guys, don't miss Straight Lines with Elizabeth Kaiser every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. where we talk about so many areas, including AI, law, and health. We have some fantastic guests on my show. Don't forget, Sunday evenings at 8 p.m., Straight Lines with Elizabeth Kaiser.
Stand and fight with Nick Schroer.
Hey, it's Nick Schroer. To preserve this nation, to preserve the experiment in liberty that our founders envisioned, we must take a stand and fight.
Stand and fight with Nick Schroer. Sunday nights at 6.
Only on NewsTalkSTL.
License number GL250000615.
Hey, Dad, what causes drains to clog?
Grease, hair, soap scum, and tree roots.
Tree roots?
This town has old pipes and big trees. They find each other.
They grow inside pipes?
They bust into pipes.
Whoa.
Once they're in, the water stops flowing.
Can we fix it?
The big green grasser machine can fix any clog.
Green is always grasser at grasserhomeservices.com.
Live and local.
Well, here's what's on my mind. I think I got the solution to immigration.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
Okay, so the whole thing's not over. The Fauci hearings, such as they were, they did not conclude that the scrutiny of the science trademark Anthony Fauci, is over. Okay, so there's a lot more to come. As a matter of fact, Senator Rand Paul was being interviewed by Katie Pavlich from News Nation, and she was saying basically what's next. And so what's next likely is going to be next week. There's going to be basically hearings and a vote on whether or not to hold Anthony Fauci in contempt. Here's part of what Senator Rand Paul had to say on News Nation following those hearings.
So Dr. Fauci, of course, was fine with lots of people being obsessed with him. But during his opening statement, he accused you of having an unhinged obsession with him. What is your response to that? And do you think he'll ever apologize for anything that he did during his handling of the pandemic?
I think my concern is justifiable. 1 million Americans died, 15 million died worldwide. And I'm not alone in believing this came from the lab. The CIA now believes that. The FBI believes that. The Department of Energy believes that. I would say a sizable percentage of scientists, particularly scientists in this arena believe that. Even the scientists who were his yes men, the ones who were saying, oh, it came from nature, in their private emails to this day are still saying, well, gosh, I think it might have been manipulated. I hate that we said it could not have been manipulated. It looks like maybe it was. Anthony Fauci was saying the opposite. That's the big problem he has for credibility and for history, is he said so many things privately, and then he said the opposite publicly. Not just on this, on masks. Privately, he said masks don't work. In public, he wore 3 masks. Privately, he would acknowledge natural immunity. In public, he was saying, oh, we just don't know. We don't know. So there's a lot of public and private disparity. And I think that's really what's caught him up. And I think people don't like that hypocrisy.
Okay, so that again is from News Nation is where that was. Now, in a lot of times, a lot of cases, congressional hearings are only about getting clips for your social media, for your campaign. You know, that's really what they're about. And there, to be fair, there was some of that was going on yesterday. However, I think that some of the senators were tapping into just that raw nerve that so many of us still feel, those open wounds that we still feel from the lockdown and that tyrannical era. And I don't use those words lightly, because I try not to be hyperbolic on this show. But when you look back at the time we were told blame the virus, and then we find out that, yeah, it was a novel virus. I mean, I personally was one of the first St. Louisans that was put in the hospital with it, so because it was a novel virus. So I understood what it could do to people. But did that justify what government did to us? And the answer is no. And this is from somebody who was in the ICU. Because that was my fear once I got my wits about me, because it does definitely mess with a lot of stuff. But my worry is that we're going to lose our freedoms in the name of safety and security, and this time with health. I mean, I know some people who they're all about, well, I just care about what the data says. Does the data justify these lockdowns? No, they never do. Because at some point you're saying, well, does that mean that people like Anthony Fauci and Deborah Birx and Francis Collins, at some point are they going to be given the authority, or they're going to equip local officials, bureaucrats, with the authority to override our freedoms and our rights? And that's what happened. I don't care what the data says. I was in an argument with a friend of mine who that's what he does, is health data analysis. And he goes, I care about what the data says. And I told him, I don't. And he couldn't believe that answer. I said, I don't care what the data says. At no point are our constitutional and human rights optional. He goes, well, the data doesn't matter. And hopefully this is what we've learned. And that's where I'm going to pick up here in about 10 minutes, by the way. But another part of this hearing comes from Senator Bernie Moreno from Ohio. And he was telling the story of a mother who went to a football game outdoors, sitting alone outdoors, and was arrested because she would not wear a mask, or she was not wearing a mask outdoors by herself. This is an example of how over the top this got. Here's how that exchange went.
It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the f*** do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace. So let me ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
See, and that's where so much of the coverage over these hearings was about the 111 times Anthony Fauci recited those same words, reading from his paper every single time, reading from his notes every time, which was that statement. And definitely that's an important aspect of this. But don't look at this as just a clown show where the gotcha questions made Fauci look almost as bad as he actually is. There's a bigger picture here. Now, we've got an information segment coming up here in just a moment or two, and I'm going to pick up on this. Josh Hawley pointed out the corruption involved with Anthony Fauci behind the scenes. And how do we know this? Because his writings, which were intended to stay private, but they were done on the job, which makes them not private and not his property, tell a very, very different story. And then here's the question that I'm going to ask is, have we learned our lesson? Because every once in a while I'll bring this up. I'll see some kind of health scare that media and government wants to try to sell us on and get us worked up over. And I'll point out that, okay, use common sense to keep yourself healthy, but it's your job to keep yourself healthy. And are we going to fall for it again? And when I bring that up about once or twice a year, there's always somebody that goes, get over it. Get over it, Mike. No, I'm not getting over it until I know for sure that we have learned our lesson. So 314-912-1019. I got a few more thoughts on this, and I want to know yours too. You can send them on the Rumble chat box. You can put them in Facebook. You can call me at that phone number and let me know. But we're going to pick this up here in just about 4 minutes after this information segment on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm meteorologist Chance Scotch with your first alert forecast. We have issued a first alert weather day as we look off into Friday, but today, Thursday, we're going to be tracking temperatures towards the mid to upper 80s, mostly sunny skies, still low humidity. Into Friday, we have that first alert weather day as we're going to be looking at the potential for a few strong to severe storms possible from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Strong winds and a lesser potential to see an isolated tornado or two are going to be possible. Temperatures back towards the lower 80s. Showers and storms will push out into Saturday, with highs towards the upper 70s. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chance Scott.
Fox News commentary with Jimmy Fallon next.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. But at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited everything for just $35 a line. That's $35 a month for unlimited talk, text, and data. Switch to the carrier ranked #1 in network coverage and customer satisfaction and get unlimited everything for just $35 a month. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit Consumer Cellular online or in-store today. Price includes $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes and fees apply. Data speeds reduced after 35 gigabytes. Rankings done by 2025 ACSI survey.
Here's Jimmy Fallon.
The Democrats forced Joe Biden off the 2024 presidential ticket because he glitched out on the debate stage, and people realized not only did his elevator not go all the way to the top floor, I don't know if he knew where the floors were. Okay, the point is, in every one of these instances, Biden's forced off the ticket. If you're mentally incapacitated and you cannot run a presidential race, how in the world could they justify that he was able to finish his term? If you say you're mentally unfit to campaign, in what world are you fit to be the commander-in-chief of our armed forces and have access to the military codes? And the answer is there's no world where that's okay.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
Bill, you're an old politician.
Yup, sure am.
So you know the old-timers warned that someone trying to sell you a pig in a poke was a con man.
Well, sure.
Well, no offense, Tom, but your Politicians Amendment 5 is a pig in a poke, allowing politicians to raise our taxes without a vote of the people. And the Politicians Amendment 4 takes away our power to do anything about it. Well, let's look at what's really inside Forward 5.
Oh, don't
Don't do that.
5 hits hardest seniors and those struggling financially with new taxes on services like doctor visits, in-home care, and rent. Sales taxes could more than triple. For up to 80% of Missourians, it's a tax hike. And Amendment 4 ends majority rule, allowing a minority of the most liberal statewide voters in one district to effectively end our power to stop corruption and out-of-control spending and taxing.
Slick plan, huh?
No, Tom. 4 and 5 are schemes that hurt citizens and transfer our power and our money to politicians and lobbyists. That's why I'm voting no on the Politicians Amendments 4 and 5, paid for by Missourians for Fair Governance.
Are you tired of hard chlorinated water drying your skin out, tasting bad, and ruining your fixtures? Jones Air and Water Treatment has a solution to this pollution. Our Hydratech H2O leaves you with great tasting, soft water at all fixtures in your home with one unit. Call Jones Air and Water at 636-899-1040 or visit us on the web at joneswater.com. You can be a filter or buy a filter. Jones Air and Water, 636-899-1040 or joneswater.com on the web. Call us now.
All the information I need on the drive to work.
Like Ferguson in the morning. I keep it on throughout the day, whether it's local, national, or something big that's happening overseas.
News, analysis, and opinion.
St. Louis is #1 for conservative talk.
NewsTalkSTL.
Just so you know, Ashlyn, who's filling in for Jerome Day, if Susie were still here, that would be a 6 or 7 on the Susie dance skill. Just point you out. Just I'm saying. I was telling Ashlyn. That's how we judge a lot of the bump music. Where is it on the Susie dance scale? All right, it is 8:34. Ashlyn filling in for Jerome, was taking a couple days of vacation there. Okay, I want to pick up where I left off here, and I'm going to go back to. I don't have the Rumble chat box up at the moment because I got my soundbite up, but I'm going to go there in just a second. And that is when you follow up with the Fauci hearings. I think a lot of people tuned in order to hear Fauci get his. And we love to hear the villain told off. And that's what happened because Fauci's a villain. And he got told off. But it turned into something deeper that I didn't really expect it to be. For instance, Senator Josh Hawley, he took issue with the use of the Fifth Amendment, obviously, to shield Anthony Fauci from answering any questions. And Josh Hawley ended up toying with Fauci just to embarrass him, which is funny enough. Okay, just as an experiment here, what color is your tie? And then he had to recite the Fifth Amendment thing. What color is the rug right in front of you? And that sort of thing. And then Senator Hawley dove right in and got to another heart of the matter question.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All right. So on the Rumble chat box, Corporeal Being, one of our regular viewers, he says we should never get over it. We often have too short of a memory in the West. Absolutely. A lot of times I worry that those of us here in the United States overall can have the attention span of a fruit fly. That's one of the things that I worry about. What's the next shiny thing? What's the next big thing on social media? And we forget, but there's something different about this era. And the thing is that I try to avoid using like the word pandemic because this was more of a shutdown era. Because as the the virus mutated, and absolutely the novel virus, as I can personally attest, how rough that could be, on your body. But remember, over half of the people, it's estimated even at the time, who had it had no symptoms. There's no way that my daughter did not have COVID. She was in a house with me when we were locked down when I was sick. She never showed a single symptom anywhere. And then we got into, well, you may or may not be sick, but we're going to restrict where you can go and what you can do. And then we got into your right to association is out the door. Here in the metro area, in St. Louis County, for example, Sam Page and then Health Department Director Faisal Khan set up a snitch hotline after the tyrannical executive order that was overturned from Sam Page, ordering businesses to be shut down, ordering masks, ordering closures, ordering none of this that had any sort of basis of other than we want to show we're doing something and we're taking control. Even after that was thrown out, he then issued another one illegally. And then when you look at all of that damage that was done, they set up a snitch hotline, and other places did this too. Email here, call here, report your friends and neighbors. And then there was a media guy by the name of Jamie Allman who put in a Freedom of Information Act request to get all of the records of those, and he got them. And the names and the addresses and the phone numbers and the emails of the people who snitched and tried to help the government and did help the government harm everybody in their area became public record. And I downloaded a copy of that. And I remember looking through that years ago after Jamie won that and got that Freedom of Information Act. And that was long before this radio station, frankly, was up and running, or right around the time we started. And what you saw were people reporting churches for allowing people to go worship. What you saw were people reporting neighbors because they had family and friends over for dinner. What you saw were people reporting kids who were outside playing basketball or outside walking in the park. Not only did the government abuse its authority and abuse us, it turned us against each other. I remember walking through Richmond Heights, just taking a walk, and what you would see is 50, 100 yards down the road, somebody would see you and they'd immediately cross the street because we were so afraid of being anywhere near each other outdoors. This was media, this was government that was doing it. So when I say we can't forget this, and when Susie says this changed the course of human history, that's what we're talking about. So here's my question then, is have we learned our lesson? The next time that they come up with the next health scare, and we've already had a number of them that they've tried, and overall, I'm happy to say people went, shut up. Because some AP article will pop up or some CNN article will pop up and they'll say, could this be the next pandemic? Maybe we shouldn't put those masks away. Do we need to, worry? And the reality is we should have learned the lesson to say, you know what? Every year there's a flu season, maybe two. And when you look at the numbers during the COVID, suddenly all the flu cases zeroed out. And when we talk about the COVID deaths, I know people who did die from COVID. I actually know them. Now, they all had serious comorbidities. But there were a number of health officials and even some others who said, yeah, we had an incentive from the federal government to report as many cases as possible and to list as many things as a COVID death as possible. So there were literally cases where someone died in a car crash. And during the autopsy, if they determined that that person had COVID at the time, whether they were symptomatic or not, they got credit, for lack of a better term, of a COVID death, and then they could tap into the incentives. And so at one point we were told, yes, this is over the top. Yes, this is tyrannical. Yes, you're having your freedoms taken away, but we're trying to do something. Give us some credit. Just cooperate because it's for your own good. We'll give you your freedom back later. And too many of us handed it over under the promise that we'll give it back. They didn't give it back. We had to take it back. Now, we did it peacefully. We did it through courts. We did it through just simple disobedience. I disobeyed a lot of mask orders. Probably had it twice. I spoke with I was doing an interview with one of the more world-renowned epidemiologists. And I told him, here's my thing. He goes, dude, he said, your antibodies are off the charts. He said, you're fine. So you better believe I disobeyed when I walked into some places, public places. And they said, we need you to wear a mask. And my answer was, no, make me. Do you want me to buy stuff from you? Do you want my money or not? And what happened is they would back down. And other places like, well, this is required. Okay, you don't get my money. We'll come back when it's all over. No. And they were afraid of government instead of standing up for themselves and their customer base. And then every once in a while, we'll see those videos pop up. Never forget what they did. Never forget what they subjected us to. And it wasn't even so much the stupid masks, which, by the way, we found out later, those paper masks did nothing. Nothing. The metadata that looked at all the studies, in fact, showed that in some cases, infections were up a little bit because people had this false sense of security with the masks that they didn't take other basic precautions that you do during cold and flu season. You had some doctors at the time, some well-known doctors, who were saying, it's a respiratory virus. It's going to run its course. It's going to suck. But just like flu season, there are going to be some vulnerable populations that tragically succumb to it. But then it goes through the process. It goes through the population. Immunity builds up. It goes away, or it mutates, or we just become, part of life. But on this particular case, we were scared to death. Media, honestly, including some conservative media, bought in for a while. And then we started questioning, and we were told that we were trying to kill grandma. So my question once again is, have we learned our lesson? Have we become emboldened enough to say the next time they try this, and there will be a next time, maybe not right away, maybe it's 5 years down the road, maybe it's 10 years down the road, maybe it's 15 years down the road, maybe it's a generation down the road, but the next time they try to do this, are we emboldened enough to say, no, you report to us, not the other way around? It's not violating law and order to say when you are unconstitutional, when you are violating our rights, when you are stepping out of what you're allowed to do from we the people, we're in charge and we tell you no. Are we going to be strong enough to do that? Some of us will, some of us will not. And so those are the lessons that we take from what happened yesterday as Anthony Fauci, in such a cowardly fashion, had to sit there. And when he was being called out by Senator Bernie Moreno, when he was being called out by Josh Hawley, when he was being called out, now he glared at Rand Paul because those two just hate each other. But even when John Fetterman was saying, I was wrong and we need to have the ability, he was talking to Democrats, to say we were wrong so we can get to the truth, Anthony Fauci stared down at the desk. He stared down at the floor a number of times. He knew that he just had to take 2 or 3 hours of beatings verbally. And that's what he did. And there's nobody who deserves it more than him. But then the question is, do we just say, great, he got his comeuppance, now nothing will happen? Well, we'll see what happens with contempt of court, but there needs to be some accountability. But most importantly, we need to teach the next generation and the generation after that, this is what happens when you lay down and let government roll right over the top of you. PMS 3105 on Rumble. Mike, half the country will disagree with you, so the answer to your question is yes, half the people will allow it because they're sheep. There are going to be some people who do that. I'm afraid that you're right. But the people in your sphere, the people in your family, the people you influence, will they? That's up to you.
JP Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA, SIPC. free.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on NewsTalkSTL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Tuesday night.
Missouri decides 2026.
All the results and reactions from the Missouri state primary.
You have to get out and vote.
From the voices you know and trust in St. Louis for election night coverage.
Amendment 4.
Amendment 5. County executives.
Coverage begins Tuesday night at 7 on St. Louis's conservative voice.
Right here.
News Talk STL. Brought to you by Fast Signs in Bridgeton, 21 Recycling in House Springs, Gemini Wealth Group, and Freddie's Market.
State Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, Sunday nights at 7 on News Talk STL. Hear all the behind-the-scenes stories about what the State Freedom Caucus is doing across the country, directly from the legislators and the people that are doing it. State Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, this Sunday night at 7 with your host, Tim Jones. State Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, now Sunday nights at 7 on News Talk STL.
All right, one more time here. The verbal beatdown of Anthony Fauci was not the end. That's what we're going to chat about here in just a minute. There is more to come. We will tell you what is likely in the future of that. Also, property tax bills look a little bit different in St. Charles County this time around. We'll tell you what to expect. Cardinals went into extra innings last night. It is 8:40. What the heck time is it? 8:49 right now. Let's go ahead and do one more news dump.
The Morning News Dump, brought to you by Great American Divers.
Wake up, America. It all worked out. They got all the news.
The Morning News Dump.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
111 times. That was the word-for-word answer from Anthony Fauci at the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee hearing on the origins of and the government response to COVID-19. Senator Rand Paul announcing that the committee is going to hold Fauci legally responsible for invoking the Fifth Amendment the way that he did. At least they're going to try.
Because you refused to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt.
Okay, so what would that mean? Well, he's not going to go to jail or anything like that, but this could be significant, and they are hoping to do that next week. There's some question as far as what the Senate schedule going to be, but this is going to be a high priority issue, and even the senators who are on the way out, I don't know how they justify voting against holding Anthony Fauci in contempt. I just don't see it, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Okay, follow up to that Panera story that we brought you earlier this week. Panera is now offering some St. Louis employees, generally speaking, the upper management and some executive employees raises and up to $50,000 in relocation support if they're going to make the move from St. Louis to the Boston area, and that follows the news that the company is moving its headquarters there. Employees who decline the offer, they're still being offered what's being called a voluntary severance package. Hundreds of jobs are affected by the change, and even at a up to 10% raise, which is what's being reported, Boston's cost of living, I think, is more than 10% more than St. Louis. So there will be some people who will be looking for work because they don't want to leave St. Louis or for whatever reason here. FedEx is closing 2 metro area locations, and that's going to affect, but not necessarily eliminate, about 150 jobs. KMOV's Heather Sullivan has the details.
So here are the impacted locations. One in Earth City and another off South Henley Road at the Maplewood area. FedEx said the closures will be permanent. The company says the closures are due to reorganization. And here's a breakdown of the impact so far. The Earth City FedEx has 75 full-time employees. The Maplewood FedEx employs 68 full-time workers. The company says the employees will be given options such as transferring.
Okay, so that means that there's going to be a lot of the jobs that are going to stay in the metro area, but when they restructure, they do that in order to cut costs and be more efficient, which means that in all likelihood there are going to be some layoffs. We just don't know how many are going to be involved. Okay, the property tax bills for St. Charles County residents going to be a little bit smaller this coming year, at least for 1 year. Pointing to strong sales tax revenue, the county council voted this week to zero out its part of the property tax bill, again, just for this year. Now, that is a small part of the overall bill, as most property taxes are collected by school districts and fire and ambulance districts and library districts and other jurisdictions and other, frankly, programs as well. We spoke about this with Elliott Davis in the, early part of this hour. Check out the News Talk STL podcast. That's going to be posted here in a little while, and you can hear that discussion right there. Let's see here. What else we got? Yeah, I got plenty of time here. Okay, part of the law that gave the Kansas City Royals hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare from the state, that could be struck down. Now, not the corporate welfare part. We're talking about the part that limits property tax increases around the state. That law came from a 2025 special session, and it limits tax increases in many counties, but does not apply to all counties. For instance, St. Louis County chose not to be a part of that, so there's no property tax basically limit or cap because of that law. A lawsuit from some public school districts and some fire protection districts argues that it violates the state constitution's requirements that lawmakers not pass, quoting, any local or special law. And as much as I oppose almost everything local public school districts do, I think they're right about this, unfortunately. So basically, the Missouri Constitution says you cannot pass a state law that applies to one area differently than another area. It's either a state law or it's not a state law. You cannot pass a law that affects this person differently than that person. You just can't do that. And so most likely, and even some very conservative constitutionalist lawyers I've talked to said, yeah, this is blatantly unconstitutional, but it was part of the deal that was made to give the Royals hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare. If this part of the law is struck down, it will not affect all of that corporate welfare for the Royals. There is a lawsuit challenging that, but this will not affect that in any way, shape, or form, unfortunately. All right, details are emerging about newly released audio tapes suggesting former President Joe Biden held on to classified documents following his term as vice president during the Obama administration. Now, these tapes relate to the 2023 investigation conducted by special counsel Robert Hur, who described the former president as an elderly man with a poor memory. Congresswoman Laura Lee, she's from Florida, she's a Republican, was on Fox Business's The Evening Edit with Elizabeth McDonald, saying two things are made pretty clear from listening to those recordings.
First, that he had classified documents, that he shared them inappropriately, and second, that his cognitive difficulties began so much earlier than Democrats and his aides wanted to admit to the American people.
Okay, when asked for comment, former President Joe Biden said, what, pudding? Okay, no, I made that up. He didn't actually say that. Just pointing that out. But his legal team, of course, fought to conceal the tapes before they were released following a federal appeals court decision, and then that actually rejected their attempt, which is why we have all of those recordings now available. And he sounds very, very out of it at times. So Congresswoman Lee is actually right about that. Okay, let's talk a little sports here. Cardinals tried something a little bit different last night by winning a game. Okay, that took him 10 innings, but the Cardinals beat the Cubs. Final score was 3-2 at Busch Stadium. Ivan Herrera hit a walk-off double, driving in both J.J. Weatherholt and Jordan Walker to finish off the come-from-behind victory. The final score, like I said, final score was 3-2, but the final game of that series is a day game. This one starts this afternoon at 1:15. Andre Pallante going to be on the mound for the Cardinals. He has been by far and away the most consistent and reliable pitcher for the Cardinals. And here's what I think to expect, because we got a trade deadline coming up for Major League Baseball. I have a feeling that the Cardinals are going to be making some moves, I would guess. But here's the thing. They're going to do something different. Usually what happens with teams, they will clear out some players, go get some name of some guy who's on the backside of his career to boast a few ticket sales and get a free agent. I think what they're going to do is they're going to look for guys, especially pitchers, who could be brought to the major leagues in the next 2 years. I think they're going to be really intentional, but there are some pitchers, I don't think you're going to see them in a Cardinals uniform by the end of the year. And some of the guys who have gotten a lot of playing time. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the Cardinals do next.
When decisions matter most, experience isn't optional. Tim Whitney has spent nearly 24 years serving Jefferson County through the Sheriff's Office. As a former SWAT commander, he has led under pressure, made critical decisions, and understood what it means to be prepared when leadership matters most. Today, as Undersheriff and Chief Financial Officer, Tim helps lead hundreds of employees, manages one of the county's largest budgets, and protects taxpayers with conservative accountability. Tim Whitney brings the kind of real-world executive experience Jefferson County needs in its next county executive.
I'm Tim Whitney. Jefferson County isn't just where I've served. It's where my wife and I are raising our family and where we've chosen to build our life. I'm running for county executive because I believe our county's future matters. Together we can support responsible growth, strengthen public safety, protect taxpayers, and preserve the character that makes Jefferson County home. I'd be honored to earn your vote.
Paid for by Friends of Tim Whitney, Heather Missy Treasurer.
And the match is about to begin.
Most of the team is out with COVID-19, so there'll be some substitutes tonight.
What's this? We have an unexpected guest on the field.
It's a dog. Well, they could do with extra players.
She's going for the ball.
Are front paws hands or feet?
Soccer season is full of surprises, and COVID-19 could be one of them. If you test positive, prescription medications may help. Ask your doctor if they're right for you. Learn more at PfizerForAll.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out? Spruce.
It's Spruce, the weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people, pets, and bees. When used as directed, spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour and dead weeds in just 1 day.